The lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and they get
He missed the complete that. He's crazy
stuff.
stuff.
Freitas is on the grass on the infield floor. He slides through. He tags Richard Eck.
The Conti Endurance Series has never been short of controversy and rivalries, but in this historic 5th season, the grudge match has the whole family involved. Some of the most closely contested races we've ever seen have pitted 2 teams against one another in a bid for the trophy. Today, it's put up or shut up as the drivers do the talking with their actions on the road course at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Get ready for round 8 of the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series live on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak. With me in the booth tonight are Bill Zahn and Ayrton Ellis. Our cameras have been provided by Dougie Beard and are directed by Giancarlo Lenzi. Ayrton, you've actually won here in Conti, so I imagine you're pretty familiar. Tell us a little bit about the track.
Thanks, Joe. I'm actually very excited about this race. It's one of another draft tracks, and that includes half of the track being part of the famous Indianapolis oval section. It's about 2.6 miles long, or 4.2 kilometers, and has 13 turns, 9 of those being right-handers and only 4 being left-handers. And we're going to be running about 2 hours around here, so really long and endurance-like race for these guys.
Absolutely, and as we watch qualifying work its way through, we are going to hop to a lap guide on board with Kevin Brown and see what it's like in one of the Mustangs. All right, Kevin Brown is behind the wheel of the GSRC Mustang, so let's do a lap around Indianapolis. Coming down to turn 1 is probably your best passing opportunity, but the track really funnels down, and drivers who cut too much off from the cones on the right will get a slowdown penalty. Combine that with the fact that the track switches back, and passes can still be a lot tougher than you'd think through here. As we thread through 2 and 3, you want to drift wide to set up for 4. The curved braking zone means it's very difficult to get the maximum potential out of this corner. Of course, this leads us to the flat-out kink of 5, but as soon as we're through that turn, you gotta stay right to set up for 6. This corner feels like it goes on forever, and though the late apex is normal for a hairpin, turn 7 makes it a very strange exit. You'll hold as far left as you can instead of tracking out. This is because it's so important to get the maximum out of the right-hander that leads onto the backstretch. Just don't go too wide off on the left side of the exit, because even though it's paved, it's not considered part of the track, and you will get a slowdown penalty. From here, your next best passing opportunity is into 8, but it's still such a short straight that you need a mistake from your competitor to allow your run. This starts us on a series of S's that gradually tighten with each turn. It finally culminates in turn 10, which is the slowest corner on the track. It's really important that you get the car back left after this to give you the widest arc possible through 11. Really nail this exit because you're not lifting or braking until you get back to turn 1. With us re-entering the oval now, watch out for the pit entry on the right. It comes before the final corner, and if you miss it, you'll get a penalty for ducking in late. This last turn is banked, so it's basically a matter of minimizing your steering input to try and carry your speed as much as possible. You'll see guys having draft battles along here quite a lot, so expect close racing. But that's a lap around Indianapolis. As you can see from the lap guide, this track is practically split into 2 portions, the oval, where it's very draft heavy, and the technical infield. However, we have the championship to talk about, and GS, Ayrton, it seems like it's getting ever closer, and going to get even closer now that we're missing a couple key people here today.
Yeah, well, at last race, Patrick Bury and Kimo Suominen were not there, so that allowed Nicholas Bailey, Elliot Huffman, and Steve Brown to really catch up in points. At the moment, it's still Patrick Bury leading with 188 points. 11 points back is Nicholas Bailey, and then 13 points back is Kimo Suominen. Then Elliot Huffman is in 4th, 17 points back, and Steve Brown in 5th, 22 points back.
As well, we have to worry about the ST Championship. And Bill, that one is definitely an interesting one, especially with some newcomers challenging our usual dominant force of James Stevenson.
Yeah, and we can look at it individually or as a team. Now, Stevenson is in front, but he's closely followed behind by Amjad Yaman. Third place is Sergio Mora, only 11 back. Yao Freitas in 30, and Bill the Rifle Randleman in fifth place. But also, if you think of it as kind of a Ganassi-Penske type thing we got going on with a battle between AMS and 49 Motorsports. And now that we hear the news that Yao Freitas is signed with 49 Motorsports, between those two teams, they're dominating the top 5.
So clearly, as I was saying earlier, a family affair in the ST field, as guys are very, very fast and very, very competitive up there. Don't forget, as qualifying comes very close to the end here, that we do have social media and ways to contact us. Ayrton, what can the fans do to get a hold of us?
Well, they can go to facebook.com/Global Sim Racing Channel or at GSR Channel on Twitter, where you can ask questions, and then you can also ask questions in the comments section of the YouTube or Twitch live stream.
And with a 2-hour race that includes cautions, we think that we'll probably have periods where we'll try to be able to answer those questions live on the air. So even during the race, send them our way. We do try to pay attention to the comments as well as our Twitter. And looking at some of the stories that we should talk about, one that we keep mentioning, Ayrton, is that 49 Motorsports versus AMS, and that got very heated at the end of the last race at Mosport.
Yeah, and I mean, this rivalry has built up and been going on for a really long time. It started off really with the butting heads between James Stevenson and Dexter Castro, who, I mean, Dexter Castro is the kind of leader of 49 Motorsports, and James Stevenson is obviously a key driver at Asbury Motorsports. So having them butting heads really just shot off that rivalry, and most of the top drivers in the series now, Amjad Yaman, Jared Janis, João Freitas, they're on 49 Motorsports, and then we've got now Sergio Mora on AMS Racing, and that's really heating things up.
Absolutely, and if you missed the last race, go back and watch it. In the closing laps, there was a battle for the lead between Amjad Yaman and James Stevenson, and it actually came to blows on the track, and unfortunately did not go good for either of them in the end, as Jared Janis came in for his maiden Continental Endurance Sports Car Series win. So we'll see what Yair can manage here today at Indianapolis if he's able to be back up on top. He's looking pretty good in qualifying, that's for sure. Now, looking at some of the other things going on in the GS field, Bill, even though I know that's not usually your area, it was pointed out earlier that we've got very few winners up at the top, actually, here currently.
Yeah, but it's still close enough, and it's early enough in the season that we can still get a champion coming out. We're not sure who it's going to be yet. The competition up there has been really competitive.
Very much so. And looking at right now at the top times in practice, Steve Brown is all the way down in 5th, and he's the first person of those top guys to have won a race. We've got names like Sean Vandergriff, who's been up there, just hasn't gotten one yet. Panu Paisanen hasn't really been around at a lot of races, hasn't had the chance to get one in. Nicholas Bailey, extremely improved form from him, Ayrton. I've just been supremely impressed at the way that he has picked up kind of this season and adapted to the new tire model and really shown what he's got.
Yeah, he has 2 top 5s this season, and last race was really one of his best races I've seen from him yet. He had that unfortunate incident with Steve Brown on the last lap, but still managed to come home second, which I think he just as well deserved, because he really just gave a really good fight with Brian Strodbeck at the end there, and he's always been kind of up there right behind the leaders, but now he's becoming a leader now, and really fighting for that first place position and podium.
And speaking of fighting for positions, another thing that we need to watch out for on this track, Bill, is turn 1. Now, I know you're very involved with the Blondie series, so you've seen that turn in action and what can unfold.
The problem with turn 1 is I shouldn't be too bad here because the fields are kind of small and they're separated between classes. But you can go too wide there, but somebody always gets the idea. It's kind of like the guy trying to cut in on the the exit to the freeway. there's always somebody going to the inside trying to make it 3 wide, and then it just funnels in and you have a mess. So it's hard to resist going to the inside and making it 3 wide. And honestly, the guy on the inside kind of needs to protect that position. But let's hope they get through turn 1. Big swooping turn 1s are always a problem on any track, and they're really bad here.
And not just that first corner that you got to watch out for, but the pit entry, which is at the last corner, Ayrton. We've seen guys actually cross across that pit exit because they took too much speed. I have to imagine guys are going to have to be practicing that one, or, well, have to have had practice. They've run out of time on that one to make sure that they get the most out of it without overshooting it.
Yeah, it's one of those really long pit entries, and you can gain a lot of speed just through that pit entry. It's the same as any other corner on the track, but then you have to slow down to, I think it's about 45 or 55 mile per hour speed limit, and that's really tough, especially when you're turning and then all of a sudden there's that pit entry. It doesn't really give much straight line space for you.
And Joe, pit exit is a bear too. I mean, it dumps you right out in the middle of people heading for the apex of turn 1, so pits are going to be a problem.
Yeah, I think they're going to have their heads up, their spotters in their ear, and really be paying attention to who's approaching as they come out. Now, even though we are still in the middle of the Mustang qualifying, the ST cars have finished, and we've got a very large ST field today. So let's head through that just a little bit early. We've got about 4 minutes left, over 4 minutes left in the qualifying. Sitting on pole, interestingly enough, hasn't won yet this season, Sergio Mora right now in the ST field. James Stevenson fills out the front row, followed by Carl Williamson, sort of a dark horse whenever he shows up. He doesn't really contend entire seasons, but he is extremely fast. João Freitas starts in 4th, with 5th being last race's winner, Yerdianis. 6th is Amjad Yaman, one of our championship contenders, so not quite up where he wants to be. Thomas Torp starts in 7th. Then he's followed by Bill Randleman, Stefan Oergaard, and George Britton. Bill?
And then you have Arthur Chan is next in line, and Matthew Reinhold after that. Hang Ho Tao, Tom Eckline, Austin Espedy, Ed Voris, Phil Carpenter, and rounding out the class is David Wemmo. Wemmen.
So we've got, it looks like we've got, let's see, that should be, I'm trying to do the math in my head. That's 28 drivers, is that right? No, that's not right. I'm sorry, 18 drivers.
30 minus 12 is 18.
18, yes. I was overestimating there. So 18 cars in the ST field. That is a very large field, and that's going to make life very interesting, Ayrton, for these Mustangs trying to navigate lap traffic.
Yeah, there's only really 2 places to pass on this track. That big long front stretch of the oval section and the smaller back stretch on the infield. Everywhere else it's really difficult to pass this, the ST cars, at least for the GS drivers, so that definitely will become a problem, since you have to, these guys have to decide whether they want to try to be aggressive and pass before the twisty sections or sit behind those tiny little MX-5s and wait for the oval section, because it can really cost them some time, especially depending on the driver.
Yes, and one driver that's probably going to want to maybe be a little bit aggressive to try and see if he can finally reverse a trend is Steve Brown, Ayrton. He's kind of been Mr. Bridesmaid for quite a while now. Been so close to a number of wins, but we mentioned he has won before as one of the few top guys here that's actually won. But it's been since Lime Rock of Season 2. We're on Season 5 right now, so it's actually years, I think, since his last win.
Yeah, and I can't help really but feel bad for him. I mean, last race was a good example. He had a really good race, sitting in 2nd place. On the final corner, he got bumped by Nicholas Bailey and dropped down to, I think, about 6th or 7th place. So he's only had 1 top 5 this season. He's looking faster than the previous couple seasons where he was really just down in a slump. But I mean, he looks pretty fast for this race, so hopefully he can get a win here.
He's currently sitting 3rd in the qualifying, and that is very close to being over. I'm not sure if we should maybe run through that so that we can get that up on the screen, since we have some weird technical issues. But waiting, you can see now on the screen actually where they are sitting at. This actually, let's run through it real quick. This is provisional. We'll update you if anything changes. But Sean Vandergriff sitting on pole right now, followed by Dualjan Boldrin. who's looking very handy. Steve Brown sitting on the inside of the second row, followed by Nicholas Bailey in fourth. Then Panu Paisanen starts in fifth, and then after that, Arthur Hermont in sixth, Ayrton.
Yep, then Jeff Jacobs in seventh place. Russell Clayson back in the Mustang this season is in eighth. James Alex Brown in ninth. Jonathan Auger in 10th. Elliot Huffman in 11th, and then Anthony Woodward in 12th. Quite a small Mustang field.
Now, I have to wonder about Sergio Mora's chances, Bill, because like I think I mentioned earlier, he is still winless this season, and yet he's one of our top contenders in the championship. So that says something about his consistency, but he certainly had his fair share of problems, either that he's made for himself or sheer bad luck.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with Mora, because he has that same kind of issue in the Blondie series as well, and he is faster than his stats show, and I can't pinpoint it to recklessness because he isn't. I guess it's going to be bad luck. I mean, he seems to after every season he says, if I just wouldn't have crashed here, I would have been the champion. If I wouldn't have made this mistake, I would have been the champion. So I think he's due. If it's not him, it's Carl Williamson, and those guys have one less to worry about because Hiro Kanea is not here today. So that's one guy they won't have to worry about.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you won't get to do your Hiro Kanea report today.
I'm very disappointed about that.
I don't know if you saw one of our previous broadcasts. I've dubbed that watching a back marker try to come through. That is the Hiro Kanea report from now on. I hope he doesn't mind too much.
No, I talked to him. He's fine with it.
All right. Well, we've let's see. We've got about just a minute to go. Actually, qualifying is over at this point, so guys are only able to complete these hot laps that they are on, and we are just watching the clock tick down as guys complete that. And I don't believe I've seen anything change up in the GS standings. So what we read out before is accurate. Looking at some of our other stories, though, fuel strategy. Fuel strategy has played a big part in this, Ayrton. You know that yourself, especially.
Yeah. I mean, definitely a few races here have been won through fuel strategy. It's an interesting topic on this track because I remember in previous seasons. I don't know how effective it is now, but previous seasons, the way to win a race was basically just sit behind and save fuel with the draft for half the race, and then just put less fuel in for your pit stop, and then you would just come out ahead in the second half. I think that works well in the MX-5 more than the Mustang, but I don't know how effective it is nowadays.
We'll have to watch and see. It's also a longer race than previous seasons before. This is the first season that they're doing 2-hour races. Before they were 90 minutes. So they are going to have to do 2 pit stops. So it's going to play an even bigger role in how it plays out, which also means cautions are something these guys are going to have to watch out for and see if they can maybe stretch it potentially to a one-stop race. Qualifying has finished, as you can see on your screen. So guys are going to be lining up on the grid, and we'll be getting ready to take the green in just a few minutes' time. Now, there are a couple trouble zones guys are going to have to watch out for, Bill. Both of them where they're going to get slowdown penalties.
And where is that, Joe?
I guess I caught you off guard. Well, it's turn 1 actually is one of them. You'll see the
catching
cones.
The cones.
Yeah, exactly. Those cones on the inside are there to guide these guys. Now, there's not really a penalty for running into them in the iRacing service. They don't get any damage like you would in real life, where you can't clobber those things. However, if you go too far inside, the service will consider you to have cut the course and automatically give you a slowdown penalty. You have to give back about a second or two. And that can be extremely damaging, especially if you're trying to run away from someone or catch somebody. The other place is heading out of turn 7 onto the backstretch. Now, this one's a bit weird. It's not really a cut course penalty, but it behaves in the same way, Bill.
They're gonna give them that. They're gonna let the drivers take as much as they dare there. They can. There's a paved area on corner exit, and the officials are going to let them go as wide as they dare, but if they go too far, they're going to get a slowdown penalty. So that's kind of an interesting situation because there is no real demarcation there. It's just, I imagine you keep pushing it and pushing it. Hopefully they figured it out in practice what they can do.
Well, yeah, and that's a really good point there, is that guys need to find out, especially if they're wanting to be getting the maximum potential out of that corner, is where that limit is. Find those little visual markers and things that you can tell how far you can go. I know I've pushed that myself and figured it out. And I've heard
I swear it's not consistent. I think there's an actual person there sitting in the iRacing offices says, "Oh, there's one." Not this time.
Well, I can tell you this, that there are guys that complain about it being unfair, but from my experience, it's you got to work and do your homework and try and figure out where it is. Otherwise, if you didn't, that's on you. The pace car is taken off. We are heading down into turn one. You're going to get an idea, Ayrton, of just how much it funnels as we watch them all pile into this corner here.
Yeah, and I just have to mention that this is also Sean Vandergriff's first pole as well, so that gives that has 2 races in a row with a first-time pole sitter.
Absolutely, and some of these things are getting very difficult to come by, but in ST, one thing that hasn't been as difficult to come by this season is wins. Although not for some people, that's for sure. But we have 5 winners out of the first 7 races. We're on round 8 right now. And the question is, are we going to see another one with Sergio Mora? One that, like I said, hasn't won yet is James Stevenson, Bill. He's been so dominant, and yet he can't seem to get on top this season.
I think it would be a safe bet if I were a gambling man, and my wife will attest that unfortunately I am, that we'll have another winner today. I think with Mora and Stevenson both on the front line, in the front row, I think it's safe to say that one of those guys could get the win today.
Oh, well, I was going to say, which one of those is going to be your pick for the day?
My pick for the day, I'm going to throw you a curve. I think it's Carl Williamson's time.
Interesting. Well, he has won this season. He won at Watkins Glen. So Carl Williamson could ruin the day for both of our front row people as we get ready, getting very close to the green. However, real quick, Ayrton, who is your pick in GS?
I'm going to go with Steve Brown for this one. I know he's fast on this track, and I think he has the most experience. So when it comes to this lawn insurance race, I think he's going to have it in the bag.
So we've got one more corner to go. The pace car is going to peel off soon into the pit lane. Then it'll be Sean Vandergriff who leads them away as the pace car takes them around that banked final corner. Usually that's turn 1 when they race the oval. And this track, it is turn 13, the final corner. Heading off to that pit entry that is not actually pit entry. There it goes. Pace car peels off. Sean Vandergriff has control, waiting for the green flag. There it is. We are underway for round 8 of the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Sean Vandergriff did not get that great of a start. Dualjean Boldrin is holding him honest. In fact, he's closing up around the outside. Question is, can he hold on to it? We might have a 3-wide situation as we got Steve Brown looking on the inside. Wisely, he starts to back out of it, and it looks like Boldrin might be able to hold on to it. No, he doesn't. Just gets a slight side swipe from Sean Vandergriff. Let's go back to the ST start.
And it looks like Stevenson is going to get out in front right now as they're coming down into the corner here. They're filing in nicely 2 wide. It looks very well through. They're nicely paced 2 wide as they go all the way through the back of the field here. And I think there's quite a bunch back in the back of the pack, but everyone makes it through safely.
Thought I saw a cone or two getting knocked out of the way. I don't know if anybody had any penalties in there. But Sergio Mora, I think, did have a penalty at the start.
Sergio's way back in about 7th or 8th place now. I'll tell you what happened to him. I'm not sure he was actually on the front pole, on the front row.
I believe he got a penalty in qualifying for exiting the track when he was not given permission to drivers. So that could explain that. So meanwhile, let's jump back up to the front of GS. Sean Vandergriff was able to sneak ahead of Dualjean Boldrin, who is close behind, keeping him honest. Steve Brown is following very close in 3rd, and then Panu Pasanen, is in 4th.
Yeah, I also just wanted to clarify, it was Sergio, Zhao, and Jer all got penalties for exiting their cars in qualifying, so they all had to go to the back of the grid.
Oh, that's ticky-tacky.
Well, it's those details that can change a championship run, and it certainly has changed things for Sergio Mora in the past, as you mentioned earlier. Right now, it's certainly handing things over to James Stevenson, who is trying to stretch away, but he's got Carl Williamson holding on in that draft, Bill.
Yeah, well, now it's a question because Mora is fast. He's the fastest qualifier. Now it's a question if he can hang in the pack here and not lose the draft and stay in the hunt until the pit stops come.
I'm sorry to jump around, but it looks like we got a change in lead in GS.
Yeah, Boldrin made a really good maneuver into turn 1, just outbraked Sean Vandergriff, and now he's leading the race. So good job on Duljon Boldrin.
And on screen, we can see a pass being made for the lead as well. And ST as Carl Williamson uses the draft to squeeze on by James Stevenson. Stevenson tries to use the over-under and come back around him. They're side by side through the S's, but it's Carl Williamson who squeezes him out onto the grass. That slows Stevenson down. And now Amjad Yaman, championship rival, who is already up into third, was trying to take a look coming up to turn 4, but had nowhere to go. Now he slots back into the clutches of Thomas Torp.
I think Carl Williamson, since he's not running for the championship, can have a little more fun out here. You know, racing for the championship is not as much fun as just racing a single race.
This is true. There's a lot of patience involved in that, a lot of thinking ahead and thinking about your actions. So the only thing, though, is that I think Ayrton mentioned it earlier. Usually the strategy in the past has been to actually be in second place and just kind of let the other guy do the work. So I wonder if Carl Williamson isn't really thinking long term here.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Ayrton made a really good point. In fact, I was going to follow up on it. I think running second or third or fourth even for the first half of the race is really smart.
Well, thus far, we've been caution-free early in the race. Guys have been very clean, except for maybe a little bit of door banging up front. So I don't know if we're going to get an early caution to help offset that. But meanwhile, back up at the front, Sean Vandergriff continues to slip down. He's now down in third. And we got a challenge for the lead as Steve Brown is looking on the inside of Duljon Boldrin coming up to turn 4. It is possible to make passes here, but he's using it to great effect and manages to sneak by. It's not over yet as they head through turn 5 side by side. Duljon Boldrin's going to have the inside coming into 6. Is he going to try and come back up on the inside? Just a little bit of a tap, and Steve Brown almost goes around. He tries to catch it and overcorrects.
Oh, Steve Brown was really eager to get that position. He actually went 3 wide going into turn 1, managed to get on the inside, but a really unfortunate event there.
After going from third to first in almost a single lap, he has gone down to the tail end of the field, the very end of the field, following Arthur Hermont. You can see just the back of it now, so a lot of hard work for Steve Brown to do. But Ayrton, at least it happened early in the race, so he's got time to make up for that.
Yeah, he has a lot of time to get back into the rhythm and try to catch up.
So this means that Sean Vandergriff does get his second position back, and he is followed by Nicholas Bailey, who's worked himself into the third spot right now, who was fifth actually earlier in the lap. So Nicholas Bailey making really good ground as well.
Yeah, I think he managed to get around Panu Paisanen while they were checking up for Steve Brown. So really opportunistic move for Nicholas Bailey.
And all this fighting has really allowed Duljon Boldrin to try and stretch things ahead. He's got a bit of a gap back to Sean Vandergriff. We'll see if Vandergriff maybe has the pace to close that in. Behind Bailey, oh, it looks like an over-under move by Panu Paisanen, who's looking around the outside as Bailey stays defensive. Just behind them, they've got Russell Clayson kind of eyeing things. Nicholas Bailey has the inside coming around, but we might see a repeat of last time, where it looks like Paisanen's going to have the inside coming into 6. In fact, he's well clear. And now Russell Clayson is on the inside of Bailey, so Bailey losing positions right and left, and he is going to slot down into 5th position.
Yeah, he actually hit Sean Vandergriff in the rear entering turn 1, so that might have set him off a little bit off the out of his rhythm and made him have a few mistakes in the following corners.
And we heard a little bit of an apology over the radio from Nicholas Bailey. Sean Vandergriff kind of brushed it off, said no worries. So it looks like no harm, no foul for those guys. Some 0Xs can tend to be inevitable in this series, Bill.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, let's take a second and go to my 4th place driver here in the ST classes is Thomas Torp there in that very classy looking champagne colored car. That's a nice run for him. He's running comfortably in 4th place. Our pack goes back about 7, 8, 9 cars back. These guys are just holding position. Sergio Mora is slowly working his way up. He's now up to 7th spot, and he's still in the draft, so he'll piece by piece work his way up there, and he'll be up there pretty soon.
In fact, he's in good company. He's got Stefan Overgaard, who is another AMS car, and Bill Randleman. So it's 3 AMS cars all working together right there. I wonder if we're going to see some team tactics potentially.
Well, you know what's interesting is as Torp is really giving Amjad Yaman a nice look there for 3rd place. Is what you want to do is slingshot. You don't really want to bump draft here. If you can slingshot and zoom around the guy, pick up 3 or 4 car lengths, and then the next lap by your teammate comes by, picks up 3 or 4 car lengths. That's how you can close in on a guy, especially if you lose the draft.
We are now on board with Thomas Torp, who is pulling in on the draft of Amjad Yaman, but not quite quick enough. He's close, but it'd be a wild dive from that far back to try and get himself into the podium position. We see just a little bit of a defensive move from Yaman, but he slots back into line as they break for turn 1.
But he's looking good, and those first 4 cars are beginning to get a little bit of distance from Randleman. I'm not sure how far the draft is back, but I think Torp is hanging on to those front 3 that are really flying.
Yeah, it's not hurting him, that's for sure. And you're right, we've got kind of 2 groups here up at the front, those top 4 and then the next 3 AMS cars all in a row from 5th down to 7th.
I think if those guys were smart, they'd let Mora get through there and let him lead them back up to the front path.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Right now, it doesn't seem like Randleman's holding them up terribly much at the moment. So it depends on whether or not he gets a run. In fact, Mora's getting relatively close to the back of Stefan Overgaard. We're still on board with Thomas Torp, so we can't see that on screen right now, but we're still looking at this top pack. And you can just see glances. Yeah, there's that little pack back there. Is actually Overgaard was looking around the outside of Randleman for a second, so maybe he is giving the little bit of a hurry up there.
Yeah, well, Mora was a second faster in qualifying than Randleman, so I gotta figure Mora's the Pied Piper of that group, I would think.
Well, eventually you have to hope that the Foxes will let the rabbit in front, and then they will be able to chase him. But right now he continues to languish behind them. And up front, I don't know if we can jump back to our lead group of James Stevenson and Carl Williamson. Those guys have put a big gap now back to Amjad Yaman and Thomas Torp, so they are stretching away themselves.
Yeah, and Yaman's really getting close to losing the draft if he hasn't lost already, although he's making a nice little close in here during the accordion effect. We'll see how they do at the corner exit, but Amjad's got to hang on to the back of Stevenson.
Now, I don't know if you remember at Mostport the incident with the single caution that we had, Bill, that kind of ruined the race for Amjad Yaman, who looked like he had a win sealed up. During the between races, he actually sent a map to his teammate Dexter Castro
of where the get off the track is, huh?
Yeah, all the exits on the track that he can pull over to. So, and actually, Dexter isn't here today, so I don't think it's going to be a problem quite so much for his teammate.
Yeah, those who didn't see the last race, Yaman had a 10-second lead, and with just a few laps to go, his teammate brought out a yellow because he couldn't get his car off the track, and Yaman ended up not only losing the race, but bumping Stevenson in the process.
Well, he's closed up slightly to this lead group as we ride on board with Amjad, but that could be the accordion effect. We'll get a better idea once we get onto the over here. Yeah, you can already see from inside the car how they're starting to stretch away, and that's where that draft really comes in handy. And I really think they're starting to lose it at this point. I think we've got two groups of 2 now up at the front.
Yeah, and that's going to be bad news for Thomas Torp, because he needs Amjad to hang back in there to secure his 4th place, because now those guys behind him are certainly going to run him down.
Now we've got an interesting situation going on here in the Mustangs. Usually they would come up on lap traffic of the other field, but right now it looks like they're coming up on lap traffic already of their own class. Ayrton?
Yeah, Anthony Woodward is right in front of Zoljan Boldrin at the moment. They're probably going to hit him right on the entry to the oval section, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. The front of this GS pack has been fairly quiet at the moment, so in my meantime I've been looking at some statistics, and I found that in the top 10, well, Steve Brown just got into the top 10, but the top 9, only 1 driver has a win, and that's Russell Clayson, so all these guys are looking hungry for that.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's why we pay Ayrton Ellis the big money, because he can give you those kind of trivia nuggets.
Well, right now, Steve Brown is looking to continue that progress forward. He had to make quite a bit of gap that he had lost, and it seems like it's hurt him in trying to gain on these guys. Right now, you can see him passing Jonathan Auger. That'll put him into 9th position now. So he's moved up, I think it's 3 spots from where he was before. And he's got quite a bit of a gap, you can see, up ahead of him to the next car in 8th, which is James Alex Brown.
This battle for the lead is starting to heat up. Sean Vandergriff is right on the rear bumper of Dual-John Boldrin.
And let's see if we can switch to that. We've got about an hour and 47 minutes left to go, so we're still very early in this race. Now we can see that pink car of Sean Vandergriff right behind the red and white car of the 880 machine of Dual-John Boldrin. And he loses a little ground coming onto the backstretch. So he's not going to be able to try and attempt to pass. And really, honestly, he's about the same distance between himself and Pano Pasanen. And then there's about the same amount of gap back to Russell Clayson. So those guys are all really line astern. It's a bit of the same of a draft battle going on in the Mustangs at the moment as they come together in this slow S's portion. Now they're going to stretch out a bit as they reach the oval. And does he have enough draft to get a good enough run? It looks like he's fairly close. He's starting to reel him in. As they come around that final bank corner, that's Sean Vandergriff starting to close that gap. Here it goes. This could be a pass for the lead. He's got to run. He's looking to the inside. Is Dual-John going to go defensive? He sticks it right in the middle of the track. This means Sean Vandergriff looks to the outside. Is he going to be able to make it happen? It is possible if he can hold on, but he breaks earlier. Does Dual-John overshoot the corner? No. It looks like Sean Vandergriff has decided not to go aggressive for this pass. Is he going to try for the over-under? Nope. It looks like that Dual-John Boldrin is going to be able to hold on to it as Sean Vandergriff has a little bit of wheel spin coming out of 2, Ayrton.
Yeah, Sean Vandergriff set that up really well, just couldn't quite get the late braking to make the move, and I kind of respect that since if he tried to go too wide there, that's very early to make such a risky move on the outside, so good for him just sitting back and watching.
And also interesting that he decided to go to the outside, because if you really wanted to be aggressive, there was still half the track to the inside of Dual-John that he could have stuck it in there and forced the issue. So obviously Sean Vandergriff is trying to think a little bit bigger than the here and now.
And in the ST class, as we predicted, Sergio Mora has made his way around Stefan Overgaard and Randleman, and now he's in 5th. In fact, he's left those guys behind. He's kind of like the Kon-Tiki. He's left Africa. He's in the middle of the Pacific, or where would he be? In the middle of the Atlantic, on his way to the front group in the Bahamas. Who knows where the Kon-Tiki went? Anybody know where they left and went? Okay. Anyway, learn your history.
I'll have to learn that one, actually. I'm not familiar.
Thor Heyerdahl, man. Anyway, he's on his way to the front group. That's my point.
Well, behind them, this has meant that the AMS cars have started to drop back a bit, because Stefan Overgaard and Bill Randleman have the Turn 2 Motorsports machine of Arthur Chan closing on the back of him, and not far back is João Freitas, who we're used to seeing much farther up. Same thing with Jair Janis, but both Jair and João Freitas have suffered from a penalty earlier on, so that's why those guys are still trying to work their way to the front. We've got a pack of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars all there in the middle of the ST field.
And we'll point out to the viewers that Yaman and Torp have managed to hang on to Stevenson and Williamson. So those 4 guys up front. So you got the 4 guys up front, then you got the lone Kon-Tiki of Sergio Mora in the middle of the Pacific, and then you got the guys back in the other continent back there, this group of 5. And I'm done with that analogy now. Back to you, Joe.
The question is, though, actually, I'm going to check the lap times here. Sergio Mora 1:44.8 last time by. Thomas Torp a 1:45.2. So even though Torp has the draft of Amjad Yaman right now, Mora is actually running faster lap times by himself. I think Mora's pace, I mean, that pole was no fluke, obviously.
No, now, and what's interesting is, since it's a long race, they really don't have to conserve tires, because they're most likely going to change tires after 2 hours. So he can burn them up, get a fresh set, and then he'll be in good shape. Wouldn't be probably 4 or 5 more laps before he's up with those front 4.
I'd be curious about that. And Ayrton, I know you're not as familiar with the new tires since you haven't driven them as much, but with this track being usually criticized as being very slippery, actually, let's jump to the GS leaders because they are splitting a bunch of ST cars going on either side. And are they going to clear? Yes, I'm sorry. There was just a huge hairy moment. I wasn't sure if we were going to see an attempted pass for the lead there, as they are really...
Boldrin messed up.
Overshot the corner. We saw it on screen. He's lost a number of positions. In fact, Russell Clayson is getting by him for third. So Boldrin goes from first to fourth, and Sean Vandergriff in that pink and black car is back into the lead.
I was going to mention that Vandergriff actually skimmed the inside wall while passing those ST drivers, but I don't think it really caused too much damage, but now he's in the lead.
Not enough that it hurt his chances at taking advantage of that mistake from Boldrin. And now he's got Panu Pasanen to worry about, though, because Pasanen's been holding on to the back of him for quite a while. We'll see if maybe Vandergriff was held up by Boldrin and if he can start to gap these guys potentially. But what I was going to mention before, Ayrton, was with this track usually being considered very slippery and cars being, moving around the track a lot, would that maybe take a lot of wear off the tires and make things something where you have to consider and conserve?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a possibility. This track definitely, it can wear out the tires quite a bit because it's quite a few really fast corners around here where these guys are really pushing it. And it's very easy to slide out as well, especially like we saw with John Boldrin. If you overshoot corners, you can burn the tires as well. So I think we might see some tire changes, especially in the ST class.
Just to follow up on that, Ayrton and I are doing double duty because we did the Blondies race earlier this morning. The temperature there was 85 and the tires got gobbled up. Here today in Indianapolis, Indiana, the beautiful Hoosier state, the temperature is a comfortable 63 degrees. So maybe these tires aren't going to go as fast as I expected.
Well, it's certainly playing into these guys' hands right now because cooler temperatures tend to do a little bit better on the tires and produce faster lap times, at least from what we've seen. So these guys are probably appreciative. However, sometimes it can make it a little bit squirrely. Now, we're watching the GS leaders work their way through some more traffic, and Pasanen looking and eyeing things, see if he could maybe find an opportunity somewhere as... We've got a 49 Motorsports car getting in the way of all of them. In fact, Pasanen gets held up by that car who has to go the long way around.
On that Dolchin Boldrin incident back there with the Mustang, it kind of felt to me like he just kind of lost his rhythm, when he had to go around those cars. And just kind of, because he's a better driver than to miss the apex like he did on turn 1 so badly.
Yeah, sometimes when you're dealing with traffic and he had to watch out for Sean to see if, he had gotten a run and all that craziness, that it can mess up how closely you're paying attention or like you said, your rhythm of hitting your marks. So that could have been a factor. That was Hang Hotel that we saw that was getting lapped by our GS leaders. So he is now out of the way of those guys. In the meantime, they are now coming up on the car of Austin Espedy, who is going to have the gracious luck of having them go by on the oval portion.
Looks like Stefan Overgaard is in the pits right now. I'm wondering if he's doing an early pit stop.
Yeah, we've seen that. We've seen people use that before. I believe it was Arthur Chan at Watkins Glen who pitted very early and then just went long on his second stint to do a very short last stint. So...
Boy, you just don't want to come out if you're running in a pack of fast guys, though. You sure don't want to lose those guys.
Well, we have to remember that he was starting to get caught up in a bunch of guys that were closing in on the back of him. So maybe he was thinking instead of battling it out, just to save time, get out by himself and try to rifle off some laps. We'll see if that pays dividends. In the meantime, we're watching Amjad Yaman currently sitting in third position after qualifying in 6th. So he has worked his way up and has been holding on very solidly so far, Bill. This is kind of the Amjad we're used to seeing.
He's been holding on, but to be honest, Joe, it's really been by the skin of his teeth. I every lap I feel like, he's gonna lose the draft, but he manages to run him down every time. There's a giant pull down the stretch, so down the straight of they're going the wrong way for me on Indianapolis. I can never get used to them going this way, but he's able to run him down. But man, it looks like he's fallen I think he's lost the draft now.
Well, on screen, we see Stefan Maurier trying to hassle Austin Espy, but off screen, we missed a pass for second position, Ayrton. Russell Clayson making progress.
Yep, Cannonball Clayson is back. He started in 9th place and already up to second, only 13 laps in. I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to make a pass for first fairly soon.
And he's usually very late on the brakes. He's closing in, but he decides not to go for it. This is a very patient Russell Clayson that we're seeing today. In the past, I think we would have seen an attempt. Go ahead, Bill.
I got something going on with James Stevenson. He's slowing down. I rewound to see if I don't know what, he didn't get a cut course. He's going very slow. He's been passed by 2 cars. I'm not sure what's going on here.
I'm going back and watching myself to see. He might have just barely cut it.
Oh, that's tough.
It's very tough. It's frustrating that you have to run on the edge up at the front there, but this means that Carl Williamson does not have to worry about him anymore. So James Stevenson is down into 4th after an early mistake. Still has time to try and come back from that. This means, though, I think that Amjad and Thomas are going to lose the draft to Carl because he is way out in front of them.
Yeah, that's going to bring Sergio Mora back into it. So you're going to have Carl Williamson out there all by himself, and then. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, we've had a change for the lead in GS as well somewhere along the line.
Yeah, I missed it myself, but I just went to look back. Sean Vandergriff had a mistake in turn 6, got very sideways, managed to save it, but Russell Clayson managed to get by. So Russell Clayson now in first place, Sean Vandergriff now defending second.
And it's good to see Russell Clayson back to his usual speed. Remember, he's switched back from driving the ST field for a while, now back into the GS, which he's more known for. And he was way off the pace at Watkins Glen. And I don't know. Do you remember? I don't know if you saw, Ayrton, what exactly the issue was. If you could fill us in.
Yeah, I think he was just out of practice, I guess. But he definitely seemed to be back.
I guess you missed it. I'd seen his information after that race. He'd actually, his wife had cleaned his pedals, which meant that it messed up the connection, which meant his brake pedal was dragging the entire race, and he didn't realize it. So that's why he was so slow. So this is the pace that we're used to, and up front, you said he's won a race before, but it's only been one, and it was under controversial circumstances. I'm sure he'd like to put that behind him and win one solidly. Right now, he's doing it to great effect, having taken advantage of a couple mistakes. In fact, this seems to be the story, Ayrton, in GS, is that driver mistakes are costing people. We've seen it with Steve Brown, we've seen it with Sean Vandergriff, and we've seen it with Duljaan Boldrin, all giving up the lead.
Yeah, and with how difficult it is to pass her, that for turn 1 is the only place for these guys to pass. So when it comes down to when you can't get a draft, it's very difficult to get a pass. So these guys really have to rely on mistakes. At the moment, there's a little bit of lap traffic here. Bill Randleman holding up Sean Vandergriff.
Yeah, you could see him getting squirrely coming out of turn 11. Now he goes around the outside and is able to clear them since they'll have the oval portion where it's flat out. Now, there are some differences between the classes, and for our newer reviewers, because we haven't talked about this for a while, Ayrton, what are the major differences between our GS and our ST class?
Straight line speed. Sometimes I think the MX-5 is actually faster in the corners, so the Mustang really just has to wait for the straights to make passes.
And you get more chicks in the Mustang than you do in the MX-5, I think.
Well, that's I'm sure that's up for debate from the MX-5 drivers, but in the meantime, Russell Clayson has cut the course, and he slows down. Sean Vandergriff is going to re-inherit the lead. Nobody wants this lead, Aaron. This is incredible.
Oh, Russell Clayson trying to make another move on Panu Paysonen. We just got by Panu Paysonen and manages to defend the position, but yeah, all these guys, they're making so many mistakes.
And in all of this, in the meantime, the driver that was looking at the lead and fell out of it way down the field was Steve Brown. He is sitting in 7th position right now. He's gotten past James Alex Brown. Next up is Nicholas Bailey, who he had quite a battle with at the end of the last race and managed to lose a potential win. And it's looking like it's going to be a few more laps before he can manage to catch up there. But Steve Brown is not doing too shabby. Ran a 140.3 last time by. What are our leaders doing? Sean Vandergriff a 140.4. So he is on pace with our leaders.
we also have to keep in mind that the big guys who are really fighting for that championship are Elliot Huffman, Nicholas Bailey, and Steve Brown, which are in 5th, 6th, and 7th. Sean Vandergriff and Dilshan Boldrin are a little in there, but they're about... Sean Vandergriff is about 30 points back, and Dilshan Boldrin is about 50 points back. So these 3 guys in 5th, 6th, and 7th are the ones that are really battling for the championship, but they're so far down.
Now, I want to hop over to the ST field real quick again. And Bill, I was kind of looking back at Thomas Torp, and he was right on the back of Amjad Yaman. He could have had an opportunity to try and get by. I think Thomas Torp is playing that smart game that we were talking about, because I don't think we've seen him ahead of Amjad at any point during this race.
I think it would be pointless for Thomas to make the move. I think he's in the great position. He's saving fuel. First of all, he doesn't probably have the pace to run away from those guys. He's saving fuel probably better than any of those guys. Mora's been driving like crazy, and Stevenson's having to make up his lost time. Williamson's out there all by himself burning up fuel, and Torp's been behind the whole way. So when pit stops comes, he's going to be able to take less, get out faster, and he's running in 3rd right now. That's a great job from him.
And you mentioned Stevenson and Mora, and those two are in the championship hunt. Mora in 3rd, Stevenson in 1st. There's only 11 points between them, so those guys are right next to each other on track right now. Mora, after that early race penalty, has come back.
I would just like to add that Williamson is distancing himself from Yaman in 2nd place. He's getting about almost like a half a second a lap now. He is flying. So I really think it's when Stevenson and Mora get around Yaman and Torp here into 2nd and 3rd, then we'll have more of a, we'll be able to keep that gap consistent. But right now, Yaman is getting smoked by Williamson. And have we lost Joe? Well, this is always scary when we lose our lead announcer. That puts Ayrton and Ellis on the tightrope.
Yeah, well, this happened last week, so we're getting used to it.
Yeah, right, we can do it.
Yeah, James Stevenson just made a pass on Torp, so look at that. James Stevenson now in 3rd place.
Yeah, and that's probably and that's probably the way to go, and Moore is going to be right there too. So once Stevenson gets up there past Yaman, then they'll be able to keep the distance the same between 1st and 2nd with Carl Williamson out in front. What's it look like over there in the Mustangs?
A lot more spread out now. They're actually coming up on this ST pack right now, so that might mix things up a little bit. But these guys, they've really been spread out for lap traffic. I think it's becoming quite a bit of a problem for these guys, and it's working great for Sean Vandergriff. He's almost pulled about 2-second lead.
Now, Ayrton, can a MX-5 grab onto the tail of a Mustang and make up a little ground that way if they get him in the right spot?
I think so, but I think the Mustang pulls away so quickly
so
that
fast.
They would only be able to get a little bit of a tug, so it might help them a little bit. One of these guys in this pack might be able to use some of these Mustangs to try to make a pass, but I don't know. I mean, they go by really quickly.
Well, Vandergriff's catching these. Oh, he's back.
Sorry,
All right.
I have to apologize. Apparently, somehow along the way, I hit the mute button by accident.
Oh, I thought maybe your wife cleaned the pedals again or something.
Well, meanwhile, guys, I don't know what you've been on, but I've been watching the battle with James Stevenson here, and he is moving up yet another position.
Yeah, he's getting there. Is he got by Yaman? I'm watching the leader. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's where we want to be now. That's back where he should be. So he'll see if he can keep the distance with Williamson, who's really getting out there.
And interestingly in all of this is Thomas Torp had a bit of contact with Sergio Mora, so Mora has not been able to try and keep up with Stevenson. He's losing ground to him at this point.
Looks like Panu Payson and first Mustang into the pits.
So pit stop starting to kick off for our GS field. These guys can usually make around 50 minutes. It might be a little less here since there's so much time that they are on full power. But right now we are sitting on board with Amjad Yaman, and what I thought I was talking about on air, but apparently not, was I wondered if James Stevenson would be a little bit more trepidatious trying to get around Amjad, since those are the two that have a big history right now in 49 Motorsports versus AMS.
Oh, that's long forgotten. That happened last race. They've forgotten about that, right?
You really think racers forget about stuff like that?
You know, that was a controversial. You know, we've talked about it once already. But in the long run, it really didn't cost Stevenson the win probably, but it was a win that he was lucky to have because of a late yellow. And I'm not going to get into that again.
This is true. This is true. And ahead of them anyways is still Carl Williamson. So right now, once they come across the line, it's going to be Carl Williamson leading, followed by James Stevenson, Amjad Yaman in third, and then in fourth is Thomas Torp being hunted by Sergio Mora.
Yeah, Torp's lost connection with his buddies now, so he's, I think, going to be gobbled up here pretty quickly.
And we could see, whoa, as Amjad Yaman goes around the outside of Nicholas Bailey for a second into turn one, as I think these ST cars are really getting split up. The GS leaders are starting to really play havoc with them as they've got to give and take. So we're starting to see them spread out, and this is giving guys opportunities to run away.
That's exactly what happened. They were in a nice little glob of oil there, and then those Mustang drivers kind of stirred the pot, and now there's just a bunch of little bubbles floating around. Again, I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Just to throw even more into the mix, you can see now James Stevens, just a little ways up, has gotten past Ed Varas, who they're lapping cars of their own field, which is a little bit of a different proposition as these GS cars work their way past on the backstretch.
Yeah, you guys have been talking about how the ST cars have been spread out from all this lap traffic, but the GS cars as well. Sean Vandergriff has pulled out almost a 2.5-second lead over Russell Clayson, so he's really making the most out of all this lap traffic and gaining a big lead from it.
And critically, I think Duljan Boldrin is still on the back of Russell Clayson. Now, he's not terribly close right now as we see him on screen and working his way around the ST leader of Carl Williamson. But Russell Clayson not only has the work to do to try and catch up to Sean, but also has to try and keep Duljan Boldrin at bay.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a factor. It looks like Duljan Boldrin's fallen back a little bit, but we've seen Duljan has really showed some good pace in the past few races.
Okay, we have some guys coming in the pits now in the Miata. So I'm looking like Amjad Yaman, and let me see who else that is there.
Looks like Stevenson, I think.
Yes, it is. So these guys are in. So if they can do this right and time their pit stop and get out together, it'll be good for both of them.
And that means Sergio Mora and Thomas Torp are going to be promoted to second and third, but they have yet to make their stop. In fact, of the cars that have made stops, it looks like James Alex Brown, Panu Pasanen in the GS field. We've got Anthony Woodward has made a stop. We saw him a lap down very early on. James Stevenson obviously is in for his stop. Yair Yanis has made a stop. Amjad Yaman has been in. Ed Varas, Stefan Moriane. So a number of guys. And strangely, I'm seeing Stefan Overgaard is having 4 pits. Did he run into trouble at some point?
And just to Stevenson is out, and it looked like everybody was taking tires in the pits. It looked like they were at least everyone looked like took 4, maybe some took 2, but I know Stevenson took 4.
So guys electing to try and get on fresh tires right now. Let's see, where is Williamson? Is he going to try and elect to pit this time by? We are just over a half an hour. We're 35 minutes into the race. No, Williamson is going to continue on. So a different strategy from these other leaders at this point, at least by a lap or 2 for now. We'll have to keep an eye on. But Sergio Mora is heading into the pits, so he is going to take his stop. We'll see how he comes out in relation to our other guys which that have stopped recently, which includes Stevenson and Yaman.
Yeah, see, now if Williams is out there on worn tires and not running fast laps, he's going to lose time to these guys who are going to heat up their tires pretty quick and put down some quick pace.
Could be leapfrog. We need to wait and see what that's going to do. And Thomas Torp has also come in and taken his stop. So they're actually in their pit stalls right now as we watch Williamson continue on around. Now we are on Torp and Mora on screen, and we can see a GS car heading on in. Not sure exactly who that is behind them that's heading in. Where is our other stoppers? James Stevenson coming around right now on turn 13.
And
looks like he will get clearly by because Sergio Mora is only just now coming out, and you can see him heading by on screen. There goes James Stevenson, going to be well clear of his competitor in the championship.
So that just leaves Williamson, and Freitas hasn't pitted yet either. So those are the two guys who need to come in.
I think we had a big problem there with Stefan Overgaard. We saw a bit on screen who looks like he just simply overshot the first corner there.
It's been a rough race for Stefan today.
He's had to have run into some problems. We did get information. He's only pitted once, is what we're hearing. So my timing and scoring seems to have an error. But he is sitting down in last place of the ST cars. Also, I see that Arthur Hermont at some point has exited the race. So interesting that Arthur Hermont had some trouble. He's having contrasting fortunes compared to his teammate Dualjan Boldrin sitting in third.
Yeah, and it seems like things are a little flipped because last race at Mousesport, Arthur Hermont started on pole and had a pretty good race until he started falling back, and Dualjan Boldrin switched places with him, so it's kind of switched roles this race.
And Dualjan has caught up to the back of Russell Clayson after dropping back a bit. We're watching Stefan Overgaard right now, who's now we're on Dualjan Boldrin right on the back bumper of that V-Apex machine. That purple and gray machine. Now, interestingly, we don't have Russell Clayson's teammate here. Usually we do German Afanador's a common one. And look at this, looking on the inside, coming into turn 8 for Dualjan Boldrin, going to try and take second position. Clean to the outside. Russell Clayson tries to hold on through the S's. It looks like he's going to have it as it switches back, and now into the slow corner of turn 9. Excuse me, turn 10.
Both these guys are really late breakers. It's really just a battle to see who can break the latest in that turn.
And eventually someone has got to give. In this case, it had to be Dualjan Boldrin as they re-enter the oval. Let's go through our top 5 real quick. It is a little bit screwed up because we're in the middle of pit stops. In the GS, we have Sean Vandergriff leading. Russell Clayson is in second. Dualjan Boldrin is third. Nicholas Bailey sitting in fourth. And Steve Brown is rounding out our top 5, making a recovery drive after an early mistake.
And in the ST class, it's Williamson is out in front. Freitas is second, but those guys have yet to pit. Randleman is third. He's yet to pit. Chan is in fourth. He's yet to pit. And Brian Holtz is in fifth. And in fact, if we go down through all these guys I'm going to look for the first guy who hasn't pit.
Looks like James Stevenson,
Stevenson, yeah, it looks like Stevenson, Torp, and Mora is how they're running for second, third, fourth, and Yaman in fifth.
So those in the ST class are playing a little bit more variety of strategy, it seems, as most of our GS leaders have yet to stop in at this point. And it's mostly just some of the guys farther down who have come in the Mustangs to try and get that out of the way. We're watching João Freitas, who's sitting in second, has yet to take his stop, and he's got Anthony Woodward behind him trying to work his way by. And Anthony's actually on the same lap because of some early problems or something that we're not entirely sure. So right now, Anthony not having the race he wants, sitting in 11th overall in his class.
Yeah. No, not much of the GS field has pitted. In fact, I think the only one who has pitted is Panu Paisanen, and he's actually running pretty well. He's been running fairly in the open, just behind a few ST cars right now, but he's been running really fast laps while being alone.
Now, I wonder if João Freitas has gotten some damage somewhere along the way or something, because we're getting information that he's running some relatively slow times, 146s compared to the leaders doing 144s, I believe. So Freitas seems to be struggling despite having the pace in qualifying. He qualified 4th.
Yeah, it really hasn't been his day. He was back in the pack. Well, was Freitas one of the guys who got a penalty for the qualifying?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what he's been behind the 8 ball the whole race. You know, and Williamson continues to stay out, but he's running faster than Stevenson even on these tires.
Interesting. So maybe Carl Williamson has it called right at the moment. I don't know if Stevenson has been running into traffic, though, because that can come into play as well. But Williamson has really been all by his lonesome. In fact, there's, let's see, there's Jeff Jacobs just ahead of him, and then Hang Ho Tao behind him, and there's very few Mustangs behind him. So he is out by himself. He has not got anybody that's going to get in his way anytime soon.
Yeah, Stevenson's by himself too, and Williamson's putting almost 3 or 4 tenths of a second on him every lap. So Carl, I don't know who predicted Carl was going to be the man to beat, but he's certainly doing well.
holding his own. And I'm trying to remember, actually, if he's had a win here before. I believe he has. Hasn't he, Aaron?
Yeah, I think so.
So Carl Williamson knows his way around this track. Like we said, he is not a regular contender in the championship. He kind of pops in and decides when he wants to race, and then does an incredible job usually. He's already won once this season at Watkins Glen, and right now he's looking quite handy for a second win. We've got an hour and 17 minutes left to go, so we're still more than half the race left for these guys to complete. A lot can happen. We haven't had a caution yet, interestingly. In fact, even though there's been a few spinning cars, Bill, I haven't seen much in the way of contact.
No, really clean. Well, you know, this track is pretty conducive to clean racing, except for turn one. I'm not too crazy about. But once you get through the first lap, I think you're okay. You know, what we really don't know is where these guys really stand, because you could short pit. So I'm looking at, like, in the Miatas, Thomas Torp is running in third. We don't know if he took a full load of fuel and only has to gas and go at the end, or maybe he took just a few gallons and he's going to need to come in pretty soon and take a full load. So we really don't know where they are until we get that second pit stop under our belt.
And that's very true. Since they can make about 50 minutes, he could do a short middle stint here and come in at about the hour 10-minute mark or so, and then run a long final stint and see where that takes him. But we'll have to wait and see how that's going to play out. In the meantime, Carl Williamson still going, even though we're getting close to that 50-minute mark. So I have to think that Williamson and Freitas are going to get very close to their pit window, or the end of their pit window rather, very soon.
Yeah, they are really running it dry. So again, they'll have the option of either taking a full load or a partial load or a real small load. My guess is Carl Williams is going to take all the fuel he needs, run until it's almost dry, and then gas and go at the end. I am so impressed with Thomas Torp. He's running literally in third right now when the pit stops are all done, and he's holding Sergio Mora off for fourth place.
Well, since things have started to spread out in both of the classes, let's head to a quick break. We will come back and keep you updated. Don't go away. We are watching round 8 in the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series. Welcome back to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We are watching the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series, round 8 in that season, in season 5 here. And right now we're watching Russell Clayson, who we saw have a very close moment during the break coming out of the pits. A 3-wide situation with multiple classes there.
Yeah, a really tense moment, and that just shows an example of what we were talking about before the race with that pit exit, because people can they're coming up on you over 100 miles per hour, and there's not really much anywhere to go besides turn 1.
Now, he is not far behind as we watch him lap an ST car there. Steve Brown and Elliott Huffman. Steve Brown has worked his way up into 4th after the pit stops here. So let's see, last lap he had a 140.4. What are our leaders doing? 149.2. So those guys must have run into some trouble. Actually, no, that's Sean Vandergriff. Was he not in the lead?
No, he pitted. He came out right behind Duljaan Boldrin and Panu Paisanen.
So he got jumped in the pit stops then, I'm assuming.
Yep.
So, interesting lead change there. Strategically, Duljaan Boldrin has put himself on the top position. Panu Paisanen likewise has got himself into 2nd, and Sean Vandergriff slipping down. Sean has been, he started on pole. He should have been the class of the field. It seems like he's got the pace, but at every corner it seems like something is going wrong with his race, and he has just not been up front as much as you think he could.
Yeah, and Steve Brown's only 4 seconds behind these guys, so actually 3 seconds behind Sean Vandergriff, so him and Elliott Huffman are not out of this race either.
So interestingly, I'm looking at fastest laps here, and right now it looks like Steve Brown is significantly faster than a lot of these guys up front. Not as fast as big of a gap on Sean Vandergriff, but Steve Brown's fastest lap is a 139.9. Or 139.3, excuse me, and Sean Vandergriff's is a 139.4. Meanwhile, Boldrin's fastest is a 139.7. So these guys are definitely have some interesting racing up ahead of them, with still one more pit stop yet to go and half the race left.
Yeah, Panu Paisanen just let Sean Vandergriff by. It didn't look like he actually had a slowdown, so I think he just gave up the position.
Could have been a smart move on his part if he knows that he can maybe ride his coattails. Let's see if Sean Vandergriff has anything for Duljaan Boldrin now, trying to get that GS lead back.
Paisanen also has older tires since he had that really early pit stop, so he probably is struggling a lot more than these guys.
Meanwhile, in ST, Bill, looks like we have a development with our leaders.
Williamson has been driving with a egg under his gas pedal, but he's finally going to come in for a pit stop, so I think he's so far out in front that he should be able to get this done and still be comfortably in the lead, but he's pulling in right now.
Likewise, João Freitas is also heading in. He was one of our last cars yet to pit. Bill Randleman is the only other one up at the top who has not pitted yet. And let's see if he is going to come in as well. Right now, Carl Williamson is in his pit stall. João Freitas is coming down and approaching his. Bill Randleman is actually staying out. So Bill Randleman must have an even bigger egg under that, pedal there.
That's it. He's being very careful. And here comes Freitas in now behind Mora behind Williamson just pulling in. Williamson has taken tires. He's in there a long time, so I think he's taken a full load, so that'll let us know he's probably just going to gas and go at the very end.
James Stevenson is coming off that final corner now onto the front stretch. Carl Williamson is still in his stall.
I don't think he's going to get out. I think Stevenson's going to get him.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be an easy swap. Now Carl Williamson finally heads out, so James Stevenson is going to be effectively our leader once the pit stops cycle through. And Bill Randleman is still yet the only one of our ST field yet to stop in. We'll see if he comes in next time by. But James Stevenson, despite looking like he was going to lose time, has now gone on by. Now, unless he's taken a shorter stop, we still have that one more stop to go, Bill.
Yeah, I saw nothing wrong. I saw no mistake from Williamson other than maybe he has just a really small nozzle on his virtual gas can and the fuel didn't flow in there. Now, I'll talk to Ayrton on this one. I've heard people say that it is random, that cars fill up differently. What do you think, boys? Is it the same for everybody, or does the gas flow differently from pit stop to pit stop?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, with these two different pit stops, some guys might be putting in less fuel than others in the first stop, and then having to put in more in the second stop. So that could be a factor for some of these guys.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. But I've heard people argue, and I swear I've seen it done where 5 gallons for one guy takes a lot longer than 5 gallons for another. But I don't know if that's the case.
Now, I haven't actually witnessed it myself, but I've heard of people doing, like scientific tests and backing out of their pit stall, coming back in and taking the exact same amount of fuel and timing it and saying that it is in fact random, that there was never two that were alike. So as far as I understand, it is a little bit random how quickly it is. And I know that the iRacing staff have said that they've modeled it after real world racing, where some of these lesser cars like the MX-5, which might not have as professional of a team in the real world, are a little bit more random because the less professional team might have a little bit less practice.
Yeah, because Williamson was well at. I mean, he was running faster laps than Stevenson, so there's not like Stevenson was making ground up on him. I have no explanation for why Stevenson has such a large lead, unless, like Ayrton said, Stevenson maybe didn't take a full load the first time, and he'll have to take a little more on his last stop. We will see.
I was going to say, I think we're going to have to wait until after the race to ask them, but the GS lead has made a change apparently. Oh, no, not quite. It looks like it's exciting moments, though, as we were 3 wide into there. But now it looks like Sean Vandergriff is going to get by Dualjean Boldrin as he has a little bit of a wobble, almost loses it once again. Arthur Chan has to take evasive action. The chain reaction works its way down as George Britton almost runs into him as well. Panu Paysonen has to back up. And Steve Brown, a guy who was almost looking at the lead earlier on, working his way back up, gets caught up in that as he tries to find a way past Panu Paysonen. He's got Elliot Huffman behind him as well, and it's starting to finally sort itself out. But Steve Brown trying to find his way past Panu Paysonen, get himself back into the podium spot. He's had the pace ever since his early mistake. Can he do it, Ayrton?
Yeah, I would be really impressed if he does, but that's a second mistake in turn 1 from Dualjean Boldrin. He really has to cut those out. He's now lost the lead to Sean Vandergriff. So, really, I mean, Dualjean Boldrin shouldn't be making these mistakes.
And once again, your chops in traffic and mixed class traffic comes into play in this, because there was just a lot to concentrate on that in that little situation, and Sean Vandergriff was the one that was able to come out ahead, and by some margin. In fact, look at the gap between himself and Dualjean Boldrin. We'll see it in this camera shot here in a second. Now, yeah, you can't even see him in the shot actually. So that's how far ahead Sean Vandergriff has gotten in just that single lap from that one mistake.
Yeah, and now Dualjean Boldrin is really under threat from Panu Paysonen and Steve Brown, and even Elliot Huffman as well. All these guys have caught up.
A hot battle contested for that second position. Boy, Steve Brown has to watch out, and we didn't quite see it on screen, but he was cutting quite a few cones off there, and they've got more ST cars in their way, including Philip Carpenter, who is kind of holding up Dualjean Boldrin, who goes the long way around, and Panu Paysonen, which allows Steve Brown to get a run, get right up on the back of him, but now they got to go around the outside, coming through turn 5. Very fast corner. He takes a look on the inside, coming into 6, but he has nowhere to go, and has to stay behind. Let's see if maybe he can get a run onto the backstretch. As they exit out, they're all line astern, but not really much advantage gained for any of them. And it's Dualjean Boldrin who just gaps them ever so slightly from Philip Carpenter having to slot his way backwards through that field. Steve Brown closing up quite a bit under braking into turn 8 on Panu Paysonen, and is right on that bumper through this slow portion.
And there's a battle for the lead in the ST here as Morris making a move on Stevenson.
So Mora has jumped Carl Williamson as well, interestingly.
Well, I'm gonna, Joe, when you get a second, I have a point to make. So do we have a second to make this?
I think we're good.
All right, stick with me now, viewers, as I hear my old friend Dexter Castro yelling at me right now. Mora and Stevenson, all those guys came in earlier. much more earlier than the Williamsons did. So they had fuel in the tank. There's no way they took a full load because their fuel tanks weren't empty. Williamson ran that thing dry. He could have taken it and filled it all the way back up again. So I think that's where we ran in. That's why we have a big difference, because Williamson is now in 4th place, 10 seconds back behind these leaders. You with me on that, Joe?
I think math was never my strong suit, I have to admit. It's probably not good for a race car driver.
No way our leaders took as much fuel on the pit stop as Williamson could have, because their fuel tanks weren't empty. So these guys are going to be coming in pretty soon.
Well, they can make it to about an hour and 10 minutes and be able to make it to the end. If they can get to that, then they are good to the end. And we've heard it in the past that if you're going to do this strategy, early stops are better just in case we have a caution, because then you're sitting pretty with track position.
Well, I'm just telling all the Carl Williamson's fans around the globe, this beautiful blue planet that we live on, don't worry. Everything's under control. Your man's still in good position.
Well, he's right now sitting in 4th on track. And in fact, and Mora, we can see on screen, is trying to make a move for the lead. And in fact, that's his teammate. I think Stevenson is letting him by.
Yeah, that's probably a smart move there. Boy, that's a pretty car if you guys are seeing the Sergio Mora car. That's a gorgeous looking car.
Very nice, and it's a brand new AMS paint scheme up there, which he's actually switched in the last few hours.
I know.
He was racing a different one at Blondie's.
That's dedication. That's a man who knows how to take care of details.
Well, right now that detail he's taking care of is leading this race in the ST field with literally an hour left to go on the clock. So at the halfway point, Sergio Mora, after a penalty, has come back and is leading the race. So you can't hold this guy down. The question is, can he minimize the mistakes at the end of the race, Bill, and manage to get that first win?
I'm going to say it again. When I was a kid, I'd watch Sesame Street, and we play the game like 3 of these things belong together, 1 of them doesn't. I'm going to give you 4 names here: Stevenson, Mora, Torp, Williamson. Which one of those is a surprising name? One of 3 of these things belong together. Thomas Torp running in 3rd place. Nice job.
Now, we've seen Torp hasn't been up at the front in more recent races, but I will admit, in previous seasons, he was up towards, he was a top 5 runner. So this is not unusual to see him sitting in this podium spot right now.
I love it.
But yeah, it's good to see him back on form. That completely blank gray car that I guess he doesn't feel the need to fancy it up. I guess he lets the driving do the talking.
Champagne.
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 What gray champagne are you drinking?
That's my Ripple champagne.
Ripple champagne. Okay, I'll have to check that out. You'll have to get me some of that or something. But Thomas Torp sitting on the podium, following James Stevenson in 2nd and Sergio Mora in 1st. Now, I don't think Torp is part of that AMS or 49 Motorsports team, so he seems to be the odd man out besides Carl Williamson here up with our top contenders today. Meanwhile, let's jump back to that battle for 2nd in the GS field. Duljan Boldrin's got at least a little bit of a buffer, but Steve Brown, Panu Pasanen, Elliot Huffman, and then we've got a little bit ways back Nicholas Bailey in 6th, but we got 3 cars from 3rd to 5th all together on track. There's very little between them at the moment.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about Panu Pasanen, and just going back to Bill's point with Carl Williamson, Panu Pasanen is actually on the wrong end of the stick for these guys, because since he had that really early pit stop, he's going to have to fill up his tank a lot more than the rest of these guys in the 2nd pit stop, so he's actually not sitting in that good of a position.
Meanwhile, a very good run from Steve Brown coming out of turn 7. He's closing up on the back of Duljan Boldrin for that 2nd position. Is he going to try and take a look? He's a little bit too far back at this point, but he stays in line. But this is what he was needing. He was just a little bit gapped back. Now he closes in even more under braking for turn 8. Right on the bumper. Almost touches him. He is getting ever so close. If he can get a good launch out of 11, Ayrton, this could be his best chance.
Yeah, and I think Steve Brown is definitely the man that's going to be chasing down Sean Vandergriff in the end, because Sean Vandergriff, he's managed to get about 3.5-second lead in these last few laps, and I'm sure Duljan Boldrin is holding up these guys a little bit. So Steve Brown's going to want to get ahead of these guys. He's been making positions every few laps. Just got by Panu Payson a couple laps ago, so he's going to want to get up there.
And Boldrin has been defensive ever since they came onto the oval. Look at him just try and squeeze Steve Brown, who goes to the outside. He's going to have to go the long way around. Can he outbrake him and hold on to that line? It looks like Boldrin is edging ahead ever so slightly. There could be the over-under as Steve Brown tries to get the acceleration. He's got a decent run, but he's going to be on the outside as they come to 3 and now up to 4. The cars behind them, Huffman and Payson, are watching to see if there's an opportunity. Brown backs out of it. Boldrin went defensive. That means he has a bad exit. This time, Steve Brown's got a better run, but he's going to be on the outside as they come to turn 6. He's got a nose ahead. He goes defensive, and he has second place, finally. And now it's not over for Boldrin, who starts to lose ground to Payson, who tries around the outside of 6, but doesn't have enough momentum and has to back out of it.
Well, really good racing from all these guys. They didn't have contact or anything, just really close side-by-side racing. And good move by Steve Brown. Took him a few corners to do it, but he managed to get that second-place position.
You have to credit him for some very intelligent driving there. He tried the over-under, what was about 2 or 3 times there to try and make it eventually work, and once he got it to stick, it worked a beauty. So he is now ahead of Dualjean Boldrin. He's had the pace for most of this race to stay with the leaders. The question is, can he run down Sean Vandergriff? Vandergriff last time by ran a 140.1. Steve Brown was a 140.0. So their pace is very, very close. But now that Steve Brown is free of that pack, he could potentially start to close him down. We won't see it this lap since he was swapping positions there. But next time by, we should be able to see what his pace is, or will we? Because now Dualjean Boldrin's pulling the same move. He's got the draft. He's going to go on the inside. Steve Brown's decided maybe that he's going to try the outside once again. Just give him the inside. And it looks like we might see a repeat here as Dualjean outbreaks him into 1. And Steve tries for that over-under yet again. It is almost a mirror image of what we saw before, as Steve Brown this time does not get the run coming up into turn 4, and this time has to concede the position. He had it so well after such a beautiful move, and now he's lost it yet again. He's back down into 3rd.
These guys have to stop battling. The more they battle, the more they lose to Sean Vandergriff. Sean Vandergriff has pulled out a 5-second lead already, and after that switch up, he's probably gained another half second. And that also adds the fact of this lap traffic. And Steve Brown just going on the inside of Dualjean Boldrin, stuck behind Amjad Yaman.
Oh, and Steve Brown was very polite there. He let off the gas. He could have maybe forced the issue and pushed Boldrin off track, but decided not to. And Amjad Yaman mixing these things up for these guys back in 2nd through 5th position quite a bit as he slides back through the GS field. We are on board with Steve Brown trying to find his way past. Boldrin decides to wait. Now they're accelerating out of turn 11. He's going to have that draft yet again. And he gets a terrible run coming out of 11, Ayrton.
Yeah, Panu Payson might be able to make a move on him. He has the draft, and they're going on the outside of Chair Janners right now. And it seems like also Elliott Huffman has really dropped back from these guys.
Yeah, I wonder if that was some of the lap traffic, unfortunately, getting in the way of Elliott. And I don't think anybody's going to be making any moves down into 1 this time by, as they've spread out in this little group. Steve Brown dropped back just so slightly, about half a second back from Dualjean Boldrin in 2nd position. Remember, Steve Brown started this race in 3rd place. That's where he sits right now, but he's been on very good pace for most of it, making up an incredible amount of ground after slipping down to dead last in this GS field. So even if he finishes in 3rd, you have to give him credit, as he's now right on that back bumper of Dualjean Boldrin. Once again, Boldrin going very defensive coming into turn 6. Brown is going to try to go around the outside for 6. I don't think anybody can manage to do that, but maybe he will. He's got a nose in coming into 7. And he's going to be able to manage it, I think. He's going to try and out-accelerate him. He's got just a nose ahead, but it looks like Boldrin might have slight more momentum, and he's going to have the inside coming into 8, so it's not over yet, Ayrton.
Oh god, these guys are just slowing themselves more and more. Steve Brown manages to break really late. I think he's going to get the position here, but Sean Vandergriff is just gaining a larger and larger lead. He's gone to 6.5 seconds now.
You know, honestly, in this, I think the onus is on Boldrin, perhaps, to call the fight off, because Steve Brown has had a little bit better pace than him for most of these laps. and could potentially run down Sean Vandergriff. So Boldrin obviously wasn't gaining ground on Vandergriff. If I was Boldrin, I'd think, back off, don't fight this. We've still got 52 minutes left on the clock. Just ride the coattails and see if we can cruise up to the leader. And he's not going to do it as he pulls up to the inside yet again.
And Joe, just to interrupt, we have Sergio Mora coming in the pits on the ST from the lead.
As we continue to watch this battle, working their way past some more ST traffic. And look at Huffman coming up on the inside of Pano Paisanen. And we have a car off the track behind them as well as we stay on this battle. And Steve Brown wasn't able to do it, but Elliot Huffman did manage to get past Paisanen and move himself up into 4th position.
And these guys are all bound for the championship lead as well, so they're going to be really eager, even if they don't catch up to Sean Vandergriff. They want to get ahead of each other.
And look at this. It's a 5-car battle. Nicholas Bailey has cruised up to the back of these guys, and now he's in the mix. Look at, really good run from Steve Brown. Just a little bit of a bobble at the end of it. He got ever so slight of wheel spin. That means he lost a little bit of momentum, but now they've got Thomas Torp coming up towards turn 8. This is going to compromise both their entry. And it looks like they're able to get through clean. This is going to give them a bit of a buffer back to Elliot Huffman. But Steve Brown looking for that opportunity, looking to try and get that run coming out of turn 11 yet again. He takes a nice wide entry. Does he have the speed? It's decent. Yes, it looks like he's going to have that draft. So as they re-enter the oval, now we have Steve Brown once again. This has been a back and forth there for a number of laps, as you pointed out, and they're just losing time hand over fist. 6 seconds last time by the line. Let's see what it's going to be this time. This time Steve Brown is deciding, I've had enough of this outside stuff. I'm going to stick it on the inside, and he goes down as they pass Carl Williamson down into turn 1. Is he going to be able to outbrake him there? Just about dead, even into the braking zone, but clearly gets past him as he carries more speed through turn 1 and starts to gap Duljaan Boldrin. This could be what he needs at this point.
And Joe, you stay with that bet. I'll just interrupt here that Stevenson is now in the pits from the lead.
And unfortunately, it sounds like we have a couple technical problems from Eric Nellis, who's going to be back with us in a moment. So we will hold on this. But right now, it sounds like, who were you mentioning was heading into the pits there?
Stevenson is in, and Mora has made his pit. So the leaders are coming in the Mazdas.
Boy, Stevenson is cutting it ever so close. Remember, we talked about, Bill, that pit strategy can come into play. We've seen drivers lose positions on the last lap because they cut it ever so close on the fuel.
Yeah,
I wonder.
Mora is well out in front of Stevenson, and Mora took 4 tires. He took a long stop, so I think these guys are good to go now. But Williams is back in the lead, and I think his pit stop that he's going to have coming up is going to be really fast.
Now, when did Mora pit actually? How many laps ago was that? Because
no, just 1 or 2 laps ago. Mora came in and then Stevenson followed. So, but Mora took all 4 tires and he's good to go. Stevenson is now good to go, but he's well behind Mora.
So that was about 3 laps or 3 minutes difference rather between Stevenson and Mora. So
you're thinking it's close to get to the end from here?
Ooh, it's going to be ever so close. They're really pushing the limit. I'm seeing a bunch of other ST cars heading in, including Hang Ho Tao. And it looks like Duljaan Boldrin is heading into the pits. So a number of guys electing to take an early second stop here. This is definitely going to free up Steve Brown to try and run as many fast laps as he can. However, this could work against him. He's actually working his way through traffic. You can see he's trying to get past Stefan Overgaard and Arthur Chan at the moment. Arthur Chan, thankfully, is his teammate on Turn 2 Motorsports. So hopefully he will play nice and let him on by. Yeah, he's just going to slot to the side and let Steve on through there.
So I think Boldrin's probably going to be the first guy to take 2 stops in the Mustangs. What do you think? Lead guys.
I believe he's the first of the Mustangs.
I look at my little chart here. I think he is. So that's interesting. He's kind of our benchmark now.
Absolutely. So as Sean Vandergriff continues to lead, but interesting. Ooh, I don't know if this was down to traffic or what, but last time by it went from 6.5 seconds down to 5.2 between Vandergriff and Brown. I'll see what it is next time by. But if Brown is cutting in on Vandergrift's lead that quickly, this could be Brown's best opportunity. Now I'm going to find some wood to knock on because Brown, we've said that so many times for Brown, but he is looking so handy right now late in the race.
And in the Mazdas now, it's Mora and Stevenson are the leaders of the guys who've pitted twice. Williamson, Freitas are running 1-2, but both of those guys need to make a stop. Everyone else has come in, I think, made their stop already. Thomas Torp has dropped to third of the drivers who have pitted.
Here's the interesting thing, though, with those MX-5s. I know from experience, having raced in this lead in the MX-5, is Carl Williamson, if he goes long on this last stint, those cars fill up very slow. So the less fuel that he has to take, that could be time safe. Says he has a very close moment with Jeff Jacobs coming out of the pits. Whew, you mentioned that pit exit, man. That's been some scary moments. But as he puts a lap on George Britton here, if he goes to the very end, only has to take maybe a gallon. That's a very short stop that he has to make.
It is, but you have to keep in mind, and this is for both classes, the pit lane here is really long. I mean, maybe Spa has a longer pit lane. I don't know. It seems like you're there a long time at Indy. At least you can hustle it around the little access road.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that Carl is going to be doing that to the best of his ability, as now Jacobs is going to try and come back through, but he has to wait. He's not actually racing anybody at the moment. He's a long ways away from anybody else, so he can stay patient and not get in these guys' way. Last time by, there was about a 3/10 loss I can report between Vandergrift and Brown, so Brown is losing ground on that lap to Sean Vandergrift. So we'll see this time by. We've got 45 minutes left to go. Let's see what Sean Vandergrift has on the clock. A 140.11. Steve Brown, what have you got as he comes across the line? A 140.5. So Steve Brown is losing ground now. So it seems like maybe he doesn't have the pace. Maybe I spoke too soon here.
Yeah, and it's about 56 seconds back to Duljan Bolton. Wait a minute, am I crossed up there? Check your chart there. Yeah, it's 56 back. Is that where Bolton is from the lead?
I'm seeing about 56 seconds back.
I think your leaders are probably pretty safe to get in and out and make a pit stop in that time.
And it sounds like we have Ayrton Ellis back with us. Welcome back.
Thanks. What'd I miss?
Well, Steve Brown, we thought was going to be closing in on Sean Vandergrift, but has lost about half or almost a whole second in the last couple of laps. So he is not going as fast as we thought he could, but that could have been tempered by some lap traffic. We're not entirely sure. So in the meantime, Duljan Boldrin has come in. He's the first of the leaders to take his second stop, and he's got about 56 seconds between himself and Sean Vandergrift at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like that little pack behind Steve Brown has really fallen back.
And I think that's about what I was predicting, that it was that pack that was holding up Steve Brown, because he had so much better pace to catch up to them. But look at Nicholas Bailey sitting in fourth right now, and right on the back of Elliot Huffman. And I think Huffman's actually heading into the pits, it looks like. Yeah, Huffman's heading in, so this is going to free up Nicholas Bailey, who's not doing too bad himself. Started in 5th position, currently going to pick up 3rd.
And I'll just report that Freitas now has come in.
Follows him in as well.
Freitas came in the Mazda, so he's fallen in behind Mora and Stevenson.
This is going to be interesting in the GS class with Pasanen and Huffman, because they were relatively close to Duljan Boldrin. So we'll see if Boldrin's fresh tires, I'm trying to remember actually if he took tires or not, see if he has been able to start to gap them and maybe leapfrog them even more. So, as the laps tick away, 42 minutes left on the clock. Our leaders are on lap 46 so far. A lot of laps have gone by. These guys have been running about 140, 141 pace. So decently fast out there today as we watch Steve Brown work his way past. Actually, who was he?
He just came out of pits. He came out right in front of Duljan Boldrin.
So it looks like those guys were about even on the pit stops, and they should be good to go until the end. If a caution comes out between now and before Sean Vandergriff comes into the pits, that is going to look very good for Steve Brown.
Yeah, and Elliot Huffman's having a good race as well. He's right behind Doljon Boldrin at the moment, and he's also pulled away from Panu Payson as well, which we mentioned with that whole pit stop scenario. With that, early pitters had to take more fuel on the second stop, so it was quite natural that he fell back.
Now, we've got an unusual situation here. I was seeing information about Russell Clayson. It looks like he's dropped out of the race, and it doesn't look like he hit anything. So
he had contact with Howe a little while back, but I'm not sure if that would have been it.
Well, sad to see that he is out of his car, and he's no longer in the race at the moment. He might be able to come back later. We've actually had very few guys drop out, especially, we've had no caution, so guys haven't really had many troubles. Matthew Reinhold blew an engine earlier on, so he's out of this race, and Arthur Hermont is out. But everybody else, except for Russell Clayson, is still out there running out of our 31 car field that started. Meanwhile, get Elliot Huffman on the back of Doljon Boldrin. He's going to attempt to move here to try and get himself into 4th position, but he does not quite brake late enough, as Doljon Boldrin is just a little bit better to carry that momentum in. And Elliot's got to be careful about how close he gets to that inside there. He could have gotten a cut course, but it looks like he's safe as he holds onto the back of that red and white machine.
Yeah, Doljon Boldrin is really late on those brakes, so I think he's really difficult to pass for these guys.
And that battling has allowed Steve Brown to put even more of a gap onto these guys. That's exactly what he's going to want as he continues on. Now, Nicholas Bailey and Sean Vandergriff are our guys yet to pit, and the GS class apparently deciding to run a little bit of a shorter final stint. It's a very risky move, but we have had pretty clean racing so far. Maybe they're thinking short final stop for these.
Yeah, Williamson has yet to pit over in the Mazdas, and he ran along the first time. I think he's going to run along again. He's well out in front.
And he's actually heading in right now.
Oh, here we go.
So this is what we've been waiting for, to see where these guys are going to end up in relation to each other heading into his stalls. I think he's going to get pretty clearly jumped by Sergio Mora, though, because Mora's just about getting ready to head back onto the oval.
He's coming on the oval right now, but this has got to be a fast stop for Williamson.
This is true. He doesn't need to take as much fuel as the other guys, as we watch Elliot Huffman work his way around in 5th position.
Mora's on the straight.
And
come on, Carl.
I think Carl's taking tires, actually, from what I'm seeing.
No tires now, Carl. No.
So this is interesting. He is definitely in there for a decent. Now he's taken off. Sergio Mora is heading on by. Where's James Stevenson? James Stevenson is possibly going to come by. It's going to be very close. Now Carl Williamson is able to accelerate away. Sergio Mora is clear past, and James Stevenson is past. So Carl Williamson was not able to get back up with them. In fact, it looks like he might be battling with Thomas Torp.
Yeah, no, I don't think Stevenson got by. So I think it's Williamson is ahead of Stevenson. So it's Mora, Williams.
Oh,
Stevenson.
You're correct. I apologize about that. Yeah, so he managed to stay ahead of Stevenson. I wonder if Stevenson is just simply not a fan of these new tires, because he has not been as fast as we're used to seeing. Usually he's just such a dominant force. Even with Carl Williamson around, usually he's pretty competitive with him. But he's been struggling to lead races.
Meanwhile, in the GS class, Nicholas Bailey in pits. Sean Vandergriff decides to still stay out.
So we'll see where Nicholas Bailey can slot out, as Steve Brown is going to inherit 2nd place here, coming back onto the front stretch. We're still on Elliot Huffman, though. Our director must think that that's a very interesting car. I guess he likes the GSRC on the front of it.
Sorry, guys, I'm back. I don't know if you missed me or not. Did you miss me? Didn't even know I was gone, did you?
You're a ninja.
You're hurting my feelings.
I paid you a compliment. Actually, we're watching Elliot Huffman try to get past Nicholas Bailey as Nicholas comes back out, and he wasn't quite close enough, so he's going to have to slot in behind him. So Nicholas Bailey is going to manage 5th position, I believe. No, 4th position. And this has implications for the championship, I believe. Nicholas Bailey is sitting in 2nd, so this could promote him, if he has a decent enough finish, up into the lead of the championship.
Yeah, at the moment, Steve Brown is sitting in the best spot to gain those championship points, but I mean, these top 5 guys are all actually within 50 points in the championship, so they're all championship contenders. So this is actually a pretty important race for these guys, while Patrick Pieri and Kimmo Suominen aren't there.
Yeah,
go ahead, Joe. I'll take it. If you're looking for a battle, we have one here with Yaman and Freitas back in the MX-5s. They're battling for 5th place. You know, things have settled down. You have Mora out in front by about 3 seconds. Williamson in 2nd, Stevenson in 3rd, Torp in 4th. Bill Rifle Randleman, but he hasn't pitted yet, so I'm not going to count him. And then Yaman and Freitas battling for 5th.
And we're getting word that Bailey and Huffman are actually teammates on 49 Motorsports, interestingly. So I guess those two won't want to battle too hard until the very end. Speaking of teammates on 49 Motorsports, whoa, and actually Huffman is making a move now, coming down the front stretch.
That could either be every man for himself or a strategic move.
Hard to say, but he slots on by, and Elliot Huffman grabs the 4th position as a bit of a struggle, actually, from Nicholas Bailey coming out of that corner, getting just a little bit of a wheel spin and losing ground on his teammate. But I was going to say, speaking of teammates battling, we mentioned Amjad Yaman and João Freitas, and those two are also on 49 Motorsports. And with the, I'm trying to remember, let's look and see if these guys have finished their 2nd stop.
Yeah, everyone's done 2 now. Randleman's coming in right now. Now, Freitas and Yaman are kind of, if you can get an eye on them, they're not really battling. They come down and they swap positions down the straight. One time it's Freitas, one time it's Yaman. So they're not really pushing it.
Well, excuse me, Yaman is actually going defensive there for a moment. Yeah. So I guess the reason I was asking about the pit stops, because I would think once pit stops are done, again, it could be an every man for himself. If you don't have other cars close to you to worry about, I mean, a half an hour of battling could be more fun than sitting line astern on team orders.
Yeah, unless they're trying to tiddlywink. Tiddlywink? Am I going to? Yeah, tiddlywink. I'll take that one. They're way up to Thomas Torp, who's about probably 3 or 4 seconds ahead of them.
Well, they've also got Bill Randleman just ahead of him, and he's on the AMS Motorsports, so they definitely are going to want to gain on him as well.
Yeah, but Randleman's not. He's got a pit stop still to make.
Uh-oh, we have a big development. Carl Williamson has lost connection.
Carl!
This bodes well for James Stevenson.
Yeah, he's reconnecting now, but that's definitely going to cost him at least a lap.
Oh, that has got to be heartbreaking. So this means that Sergio Mora, even though he had a comfortable lead before, has an even more comfortable lead now. In fact, it's a very large gap between himself and James Stevenson.
That's got to be frustrating.
Meanwhile, the battle for the GS lead is on because Sean Vandergriff just came out of pits, and Steve Brown is really close.
He's got what looks like I'm seeing it's about maybe about a 2 or 3 second gap. It looks like on track, maybe even less than that.
So he cut the gap down in half.
Potentially, both of these guys have finished all of their pit stops, so at this point it is a battle to the finish. We're going to get a very good idea now of where they sit in comparison to each other. They do have a relatively clear track. They've got Philip Carpenter just ahead of them, but then other than that, it's a long ways up to Hang Hotel, so if they manage to catch each other, it's going to be a straight fight.
Now, Steve Brown is my pick, Joe, so who would you choose?
You know, it's so tough to say because we've seen Steve make some critical errors late in the race before. So, and Sean Vandergriff has been looking very consistent in recent races, been up towards the top. It's almost as though he's due. So, you know, I'm going to have to actually tip my hat towards Sean Vandergriff as being a little bit more likely to maybe run away with this one.
Yeah, well, he did have that really close moment in turn 6 near the beginning of the race. Got sideways and lost that first position. So I think Steve Brown is actually just as consistent. So it really come down to that raw pace.
Well, he puts a lap on Philip Carpenter as we are on Elliot Huffman once again, curiously. But we're talking about the leaders of Sean Vandergriff and Steve Brown at the moment and watching that battle develop. It is about 2 seconds between them last time by at the line. Steve Brown is going to work his way past Philip Carpenter. Let's see if he can get back to the line and maximize it just ever so slightly. He was inconvenienced just a little bit, but he is trying his best to close that gap. He looks a little bit closer this time. And I guess our director is just very fascinated by Elliot Huffman.
Well, he said he doesn't like this track very much, and he was taking a few naps on the straightaway, so maybe that's where we are.
Possibly. We'll have to maybe send over our own Kevin Brown over to his house to poke him and wake him up here.
We can do this radio style.
The radio style. There we go. Maybe we'll have to have, I think we have a spotter in here. We'll have to have the spotter send a poke to Giancarlo, see if he can wake him up there. But in the meantime, I'm still got my eye on Sean Vandergriff. This time by the line, 1.8 seconds, 2/10 cut out by Steve Brown, Ayrton. So you might be right. Steve Brown is closing in.
Yeah, too bad we can't see. I told Giancarlo to leave it on a good battle this time if he was going to fall asleep. But I don't know. Well, we can do it by radio. We've done it before. So Steve Brown, definitely, he's really cutting down on that time. I think Sean Vandergriff was taking a while to warm up to his new tires.
Yeah, and that's that. I'm actually curious to know. I have heard some of the drivers talk about how the car can be a little bit squirrely. So even though you might be faster, it's a little bit tougher to stay consistent.
Yeah, I think Steve Brown is just really putting the pedal to the metal right now. He ran a 139.6, which is only a few tenths off qualifying pace. So he's really charging.
And he's got 30 minutes left to do it. Steve Brown started in third position, sitting in second right now. And he's got a handicap back to Dualjean Boldrin at the moment, about 5 or 6 seconds between himself and the Brazilian. So he is looking quite good to be able to try and battle out with Sean if he manages to catch him. Let's see what it is this time by. Sean's going to be able to lap the car of Hang Hotel on the oval, so he shouldn't lose too much time. And then they've got a little ways up to Tom Eckline, so not much to get in the way between them. Coming across the line, what is it this time for Sean Vandergriff? A 139.2, very fast laps. 139.8 for Steve Brown, so he lost about half a second, more than half a second this time to Sean Vandergriff.
Well, 39.2 is extremely fast. I think that was only a 10th off his qualifying lap. So he definitely got the help from that draft to Payne Hotel. But yeah, I mean, Steve Brown really has to hope for some lap traffic to hold Sean Vandergriff up, because I think they're almost identical in pace.
Well, now we can see Sean Vandergriff and Steve Brown on screen. I think our director's nap is over. So, unfortunately, it looks like Hang Hotel was holding up Steve Brown a little bit through that little S's section coming into turn 6. So he's going to lose time yet again.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just reading. We got a little message from our director. I think he did was a little bit tired there. So, meanwhile, on track action, it looks like Sergio Mora has been handily holding off James Stevenson. Now, what are their lap times like? Because we haven't watched that. 144.8 for Sergio last time by, 145 flat. So just about the same situation, it looks like, Bill. James doesn't seem to be making too big of inroads.
Yeah, I'm going to tip my hat to 3 drivers here. Let's remember Sergio Moro got that grid penalty for a qualifying infraction. He's made his way up there. He's comfortably ahead of Stevenson. Shout out to Thomas Torp. He's running 3rd now. Podium for Thomas. Nice job. And also, let's give a tip of the hat to Carl Williamson. Not racing for the championship. There's no reason he needed to come back in. He's 3 laps behind. Way to go, Carl. Finish this thing out.
And actually, Carl Williamson is sitting 11th in his class as well. So even though, I mean, gosh, the field is so big, even with his troubles and his speed, he's still mid-pack.
Yeah, I know. It's really... I can't even imagine what it's like to be that good.
Well, you have the humility to admit that, at least. But meanwhile, speaking of tipping hats to certain drivers, Bill Randleman doing such a good job. Yeah, he's up in the championship, but he's usually not a front runner, and he is currently sitting 4th. Oh, and as I say that, commentators curse. He goes off track. He could lose a position as João Freitas closes up on the back of him, along with the other 49 Motorsports car of Amjad Yaman. Critical mistake late in the race for Bill Randleman. This could cost him.
Well, my fancy software that I just got from our compadre Richard Losper tells me that Bill Randleman still has only made 1 pit stop. So I'm going to stick with this technology I got sitting over here on my 3rd monitor and say that he's not quite doing as well as we think.
Aha! So flattered by strategy potentially here. And it looks like he could be, unfortunately, not flattered by the draft because João Freitas has got to run. He's going to head down the inside. Freitas is going to move himself up into 4th here.
And there's Yaman's going to come right in behind him. Maybe.
He's going to want to, he's going to want to hold on to them and not get caught up by Randleman here. And once again, between two teams that don't like each other very much, there's contact.
William, careful.
And Bill just holds on to it as he squirms off the track, keeps it pointed forward, but he's going to have to cut the corner. That might give him a slowdown penalty, though. And now he's back on track. Amjad Yaman made contact with another AMS car last race. Don't forget, I don't think those AMS guys are going to be very happy with that Child's Play car.
Well, I'm not. I'm going back on the replay now to look at it. And it's, you could call it either way, I guess. Well, I don't know if you can, actually.
Yeah, he didn't really quite have a nose in, but he was squeezed a little bit. I'm not sure if we can get a replay of that.
Yeah, it's, sorry, Amjad. That's kind of rough.
Yeah, it was a bit of a dangerous move, but it is late in the race. And remember, Amjad is fighting for the championship. He has to take some risks here and there, especially being far behind in this race. I mean, Amjad currently, like I said, has moved himself up into 5th now after taking that from Randleman. That's not where he wants to be. He wants to be higher positions than that.
Well, let's come to the defense of Amjad. I'll go ahead and play devil's advocate. If indeed Randleman has one more stop to make, there's really no need for Randleman to be battling for position if he has another pit stop to come.
This is also true, but, Amjad might not know if he had made that stop.
How could he know? Right.
And we're looking at the replay now, actually, of the incident as they're pulling up on the front stretch now. It should come up in a few seconds.
Yeah, Amjad's really smart, but there's no way he could know how many pit stops Bill Randleman has made.
Yeah, he'd need someone in his ear to be able to alert him to that, and I'm not sure if he has a spotter or not. He could have Dexter Castro, who's actually not out on track, and it is his teammate. Now we're watching the incident unfold. Coming through turn 1, now it switches back into turn 2. Doesn't quite have the nose in, and yeah, Bill just kind of starts to drift down on him. He probably didn't get his spotter telling him he was there. And likewise, Amjad probably wasn't sure if he was, he had to stay in the gas in that situation to try and make up as much room as he could. So, yeah, I'm going to have to say that was a bit of a racing incident.
I would agree.
As we switch back live, Steve Brown, let's hop over to that GS leader, is currently 3.3 seconds. He is continuing to lose ground, Ayrton. He is not looking too handy for that win.
Yeah, Vandergriff has fresher tires. I mean, they're only a few laps fresher, but they're still a little bit better than Steve Brown's tires, so that's probably a factor. And also, I just feel like Vandergriff, this whole race, has had really good luck, or just been really doing a good job at getting through the traffic. I mean, before the pit stops, he was doing a lot of passing ST cars, and the guys behind him getting slowed up a lot, and he managed to gain a lead. So I think he's just really good at managing all the traffic.
Now, Ayrton, one thing that strikes me about this race, and I may be putting the commentator's curse on things here, but after after the opening rounds were just fraught with cautions and people were not happy with other people's behavior on track, this is a caution-free race, and we almost had a caution-free race at Mosport as well, as we can just see Amjad Yaman making a move on João Freitas.
Oh, looks like he's going to get a little mixed up with Sean Vandergriff. That's going to slow him down, and Steve Brown is going to be liking this quite a bit.
And Freitas is trying to come back up the inside of turn 6. These are going to slow these two down as well. But Amjad Yaman is going to have the inside coming into 7 onto the backstretch. But the question is, who can get the better run? And it looks like it's going to be Yaman. But as I was saying, Ayrton, this is just drastic fortunes, and we kind of expected it because we see it every season. With newcomers coming in, we've got rookies each season. It seems like the racing cleans up about halfway through, and we're a little past halfway at this point, but this is just completely different to what we saw early on.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few new drivers, especially in the GS class, that hadn't shown their faces, and I guess it really just takes a little while for people to figure out what other people do, like who like for some people to know who will be making aggressive moves and not. So now that the aggressive drivers have kind of been isolated and figured out, some people just know to be a little bit more careful around them.
Absolutely, and being careful with Steve Brown, who you saw putting a lap on our ST drivers and continuing on in second place. Let's see if he made up ground. Oh, wow, he made up ground. He cut almost a second and a half off of Sean Vandergriff in that lap.
Yeah, Vandergriff got really held up from that battle between Amjad Yaman and João Freitas, so that really helped Steve Brown. And I think if Steve Brown can get a little bit closer, he might be within draft range.
Yeah, and then the battle will very much be on. You know, we keep saying it, Ayrton, but it's always so true in racing. It is just not over until that checkered flag flies, and I don't hear any fat ladies yet.
Well, yeah, we still have about 20 minutes left, so still like quite a long time for these guys to go. They can still fit a lot of laps in.
Let's jump over to the ST field. Bill, it looks like really no ground gained or lost between Sergio and James, although James might be slightly farther back.
No, we're not quite as exciting as you guys over there. You got two good battles between Vandergriff and Brown, and then again for 4th and 5th between Hoffman and Bailey. But no, you know what? Let's give a tip of the hat to our friend Richard Losper and his wonderful software, because sure enough, Bill Randleman did have to pit. So now Randleman's down in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 10th spot. So it's Mora. It's really an equal distance. Mora, and then a little bit back is Stevenson. A little bit behind them is Torp. A little bit behind them is Yaman and Freitas in the battle. That's really where the action is. Yaman, Freitas, and then Giannis is right in there too.
And to add insult to injury, we saw James Stevenson putting a lap on Carl Williamson there. Now we're watching Steve Brown. But let's jump back to the ST field, because Amjad Yaman and Freitas are still fighting. I don't think there's any team orders here. I think this is a straight fight between these guys on track for 4th spot.
And
Excuse me, 5th spot.
Yeah, and lurking just back is Yuri Giannis. It's funny because these guys just battled it out. They were together in the Blondies race earlier today, so they're right at it again. Here come the Mustangs coming through. Let's see how they're going to wait, take their time.
Oof, and Nicholas Bailey was very deep on the brakes trying to charge past Yerdianis there and keep himself in contention with Elliot Huffman.
Well, that's a battle for 4th place in the Mustang division, and we're looking at a battle for 4th place, I guess, in the Miata division.
Yeah, and they're going to break it up just momentarily here as, wow, looking just a little bit on the inside there for João Freitas, getting very close to the rear of his teammate. Meanwhile, behind them, a very patient, you can see as we ride on board with Amjad Yaman, a very patient Elliot Huffman.
They should be able to get him now on down this back straight.
And, oh, critically, though, it looks like Huffman's going to get by, and Nicholas Bailey's going to have to make a late dive.
Just
get it. And that's going to hold up Amjad Yaman, but not an opportunity for João Freitas.
Oh, that's good. That's good racing, though.
Very close, very fair racing. Oh, and a bit of a balk there as Freitas was looking to try and get a run coming out of 11. He does. He's going to have that draft, but just behind them because they got slowed up. That means that Yerdianis is back in this battle, so it's a 3-way battle now for the 4th spot.
Yeah, I think Giannis is close enough. He should be able to gain some distance down this long, wrong direction straightaway.
And Freitas closes in using that draft. Is he going to slingshot by? No, he actually decides to hold back, interestingly. And you can see Yaman choosing the very middle of the track to try and defend. Now he switches back to the racing line. Knows that Freitas is not going to elect to try and get by at this point. And just behind them, another 49 Motorsports car. We've got basically a train of 49 cars here going as Yair Yanis.
You know, Williamson being lapped was apparently too much for him to bear. He's called it a day, and I can't say I blame him.
Yeah, well, I've got some interesting information from Ayrton. It sounds like the battle could be on between Steve Brown and Sean Vandergriff now.
Yeah, that hold up from Amjad Yaman and João Freitas really slowed Sean Vandergriff down. Let Steve Brown get within draft range. Now he's really right there in the next, I mean, maybe even this lap, he might be able to make a move into turn 1.
The question is, can he get it done before 16 minutes are over? Tries to get himself a nice launch as we watch him head out of turn 11 back onto the oval. And we'll get a chance to see what the timing is when they come across the line. I want to say this is what, like the third race this season that we've seen Steve Brown in contention for the win?
Yeah, I think so. He's had one top 5 this season, then he had that that instant at Mosport. So yeah, I think it's about the third time.
3 tenths cut out this time by, and Sean Vandergriff is being held up ever so slightly by Tom Eckline, who's going to try and weave past him coming through the S's. This means he's now right on top of him as we ride on board with Steve Brown. We are now right on the back of that pink and black car.
Yeah, Brown got through much quicker than Vandergriff did.
And don't forget that Steve Brown is actually donating money to happytails.org with every win. I'm trying to remember, actually, I believe it was $20 for every win and something like 15 or 5 for every podium. And then every lap he completes, he is donating money to that wonderful organization that helps rescue animals, rescue dogs specifically, I believe.
You guys can stay with that battle up there, but it's a 3-way battle between Yanis, Freitas, and Yaman. Looks like Freitas is going to take the position up to 4th. Boy, they're close. We might want to go back to look at this.
It's hard to call at this point. You'll have to let us know if something starts to unfold, because right now Vandergriff is being held up by James Stevenson, and this means that coming onto the front stretch, it's going to be a big draft for Steve Brown. If he can just squeak by, yes, it looks like James Stevenson is going to hold to the outside. We could see a pass attempt coming into turn 1 there.
Yeah, he's a little bit far back. He might be able to get up there alongside, but it's going to be a really difficult task for him. I think he's going to just try to stick behind for now. Sean Vandergriff looks to go a little defensive, actually. He's staying a little farther away from that wall. Realizes that Steve Brown isn't quite there yet, so maybe next lap.
I'm not sure Steve Brown actually wants to make the pass. I mean, he's trying to get there, but I'm not sure that's the best move.
Well, you know, I was thinking about that in my head, but we haven't seen the Mustangs as affected as the MX-5. So I don't know if he'd have enough to be able to slingshot him on the final lap. If I was Steve Brown, I'd want to be ahead.
Yeah, I think that first place position is better to be in on that last lap.
Gets held up just ever so slightly by David Whammo and through turn 5, but doesn't lose much of anything. Now he's coming through turn 6 and closes right up on the bumper. And they've got Anthony Woodward, who is a lap down, who pulls out of the way and lets them battle it out on their own. Very polite driving. Steve Brown giving him a little bit of a thank you. And I saw smoke behind them, interestingly.
Oh, Stevenson almost got collected. It looks like, let me see if I can see who that was, spun just in front of him.
David Whammond.
Oh, yeah, Whammond. Almost got Stevenson.
Manages to continue on. But now we are back to that oval portion, that draft portion. Is Steve Brown going to be able to... Oh, he is much better on the apex coming through turn 11. That means he's going to be a lot closer, as Sean Vandergriff was miles away from where he could have been in that corner. Closing in the draft ever so slightly, allowing him to close that gap. It was 0.4 last time by at the line. Is he close enough for an attempt? I think he might be. Now they cross the line, completing lap 63, now into lap 64. He is now less than a car length back, 2/10 back. He looks to the inside. This is a pass for the lead. He is much later on the brakes. Is he going to be able to make the corner? No, he overshoots it. Sean Vandergriff takes the position back. Steve Brown, after an opportunity, carries a little bit too much speed. I think that draft made him just a little bit overambitious, Ayrton.
Yeah, and good job on Sean Vandergriff being aware of how late Steve Brown was braking. If he tried to stay on the outside line, they would have plowed straight into each other. That would have ended really badly.
Very smart driving, you have to say. Very much a heads-up driver today. And we've got 12 minutes left to go. We've been ignoring that battle, unfortunately, in the ST. What's been going on over there?
It's Yaman, Freitas, and Giannis fighting it out. Nothing. It's good. They're holding their own, but there has been no passing yet, but they're right there. Nothing nearly as exciting as going on in the Mustang class.
All right, let's stick with this battle for the lead then, as Steve Brown has not really lost the ground. In fact, he's right up on the back once again. All he needs is that good launch coming out of here. He's got it once again, and twice in a row now. He has been much closer to the apex and his competitor, Sean Vandergriff. This time, though, he is less than a car length back. Last time, there was about 5 between them when they were at this point on the track, which means he is going to be able to have that draft much sooner and much more effectively as he closes in, coming around that final corner. The slingshot is going to be just about perfect, but they've got the car of Sergio Mora, the leader of the ST cars, and he manages to get the inside as they bob and weave. He goes all the way to the wall. He's got the inside. Is he going to be able to not outbrake himself into the corner this time? He's much better into there. Sean Vandergriff tries to hold on around the outside. Steve Brown tries to carry his momentum, almost chops him off. They're ever so close. Steve Brown has the inside for turn 3. Now he's got it. He's into the lead. Steve Brown with 10 minutes to go.
And Sean Vandergriff, he's not going to give up. He wants that win.
I don't doubt for 1 minute that he's just going to lay down. Both of these guys looking for a win. Sean Vandergriff for his first. Steve Brown looking for his first in well over a year. Vandergriff still holding on to the back, and you have to give credit to Sergio Mora on that one because, boy, he had 2 cars that were very anxious to get by them, and Steve Brown just timed it absolutely perfect to try and take that inside line.
You know, just to follow up on you guys' point about if you want to be first or second, Brown couldn't have had a better exit and been more close to Vandergriff, and he still couldn't get to him before the start-finish line. So I think you're right. You want to be in first place in that last corner.
But now it's going to be a all-out slugfest into that first turn from here on out, as these guys both are going to want this win ever so much, and Sean Vandergriff is going to have the draft. In fact, he's as close as Steve was last time by, which means it's going to be the same thing but reversed roles, Ayrton, as they head towards turn 1.
Yeah, they have a lap car right in front of them. That's Bill Randall. Hopefully, basically the same exact scenario as last time. It doesn't look like Steve Brown even wants to go defensive for this lap. He actually might get a little box day. No, he goes to the inside of Bill Randleman, but damn, they're side by side now. Going into turn 1, Sean Vandergriff gets the position. I think Steve Brown just given that one.
I think he might be trying for the over-under. He gets a decent run, but it's not enough. You know, I'm surprised if Sean Vandergriff was a little bit more aggressive, if he really wanted to, he could have potentially just boxed him in and forced Steve Brown to lift, but he gave him the room, so that was... I don't know, I guess maybe I'm a little bit more heartless, but if I was Sean Vandergriff, I would have held as close to that lapped car as I could to force Steve Brown to concede the position.
Okay, boys, here's where you want to be. You want to be in second place, coming around the last corner to get the white flag. You want to make your move on the next to last lap.
Right now, the car in first, though, is Sean Vandergriff with 8.5 minutes left on the clock. And at a minute 50, I'm trying to do some math here, Eric.
Yeah.
I think that's about 4 or 5 laps?
Yeah, I think so, about that.
So 5 laps potentially left to go here. And the other thing is they could have a caution late in the race. So you definitely want to be the car ahead just in case something happens. You never know. Steve Brown definitely not as close as Sean Vandergriff was last time by. Lost a little bit of ground. You can see a number of car lengths between those two. He's still close enough for the draft, though, but he is he's going to just barely close in as they head up into turn 1.
There's an ST battle right ahead of them. Arthur Chan and George Britton. They're going to go 3 wide into turn 1. Sean Vandergriff trying to go on the inside of the 2 ST drivers.
It's going to hold him up, but now Steve Brown is held up as they work through turns 2 and 3. And, oh, he is going to lose a bunch of ground and works past his teammate of Arthur Chan. Unfortunately, can't really do anything to try and jump out of the way with the battle he's got with George Britton. Oh, and he almost makes contact with his teammate there for a second.
Actually, Doljon Boldrin has fallen back into the clutches of Elliott Huffman and Nicholas Bailey, so we've now got a 3-car battle for 3rd as well.
So the final podium spot is up for grabs there. Right now, though, 4th position is a little bit more hotly contested, and we're hearing that something's going on with Freitas. And that's the battle between Yaman and Freitas. Freitas making the move on the inside.
Yeah, that's there they go, and he's got it. Yaman will be able to stick with him. These guys are so evenly matched. I mean, we could watch them for hours.
So, well, the real thing I think is going to be interesting when the last lap comes, and these guys are all going to be trying to snipe each other at the very end, because that's going to mean a 4th position for those guys. And remember, Freitas and Yaman are in the contention for the championship here, so those guys are going to be extra hungry to try and make something out of every little spot.
Yeah, and Ayrton Ellis was on it again when he gave a comment about the difference between the Mustangs and the MX-5s. I think the MX-5s, they don't have the power. I think they can slingshot before the checkered flag on the last lap.
And unfortunately, it was 6 tenths last time by. Now it's 1.4. Steve Brown is losing lots and lots of ground to Sean Vandergriff, and only 6 minutes left to go on the clock. He's got some ground to make up.
Yeah, this is going to be tough for him because, I mean, he's only just within drafting range, but it's not really that strong at all, so he really has to close in on this infield. It looks like he's closing in a little bit in this first section, though.
Well, he's got Overgaard and Teo ahead of him, so that's how Brown caught him before, is when they got into traffic. So there's a nice MX-5 battle going on just a few seconds ahead.
And we're hearing that Steve Brown potentially no, he didn't have the lead lap bonus. I'm sorry, we were getting some information. I didn't quite hear who it was there.
No, he did lead a lap.
I see what you're saying. Yes, he did lead a lap. Okay, so he is in it.
Vandergriff's going to get stuck behind these guys.
Yeah, I was just about to say that's Stefan Overgaard and Hang Hotel battling very hard, and they're not going to want to move out of the way very easily here, even though these are the leaders. And he's going to try and stick it in this corner. This is dangerous. Manages to get by him, but that's going to hurt his exit. Interestingly, though, Steve Brown didn't get a very good exit. Maybe he did. Oh, now he's starting to close in. Now we're seeing that speed difference, and he has caught back up. It has all gone back into his hands. We could see another pass attempt as he starts to pull him in. Now down to about 3 car lengths between them as they head across the stripe. It was 1.4 seconds. Now it's 0.3. He's gained it all back. He's not close enough to try and take him into turn 1, but he is right on that back bumper of that pink and black car of Sean Vandergriff.
Battle for 3rd just behind him, guys.
Oh yeah, Doljon Boldrin on the inside of Elliott Huffman. Elliott Huffman, I think, got the draft and tried to make a move. He's going to try the over-under, and I don't think he's going to quite get it, but it looks like these guys are hungry to get that podium position.
He might take a peek up into 4, but he's just a little bit too far back, unfortunately. Misses the apex completely coming through 4, and that's going to put him at a disadvantage. Nicholas Bailey behind them all. He is 2nd in the championship. He is probably licking his chops at the potential 2 positions that he can grab if these 2 start fighting. Meanwhile, we are still on Steve Brown and Sean Vandergriff, and we have about 3.5 minutes left to go, so I think we have 2 laps left on this clock. Question is, how is Steve Brown going to play this? Is he going to try and pass him now? He is very close on the exit of 11 this time, Ayrton.
Yeah, I would be trying to get ahead as soon as I can now, because Steve Brown, he doesn't know when he's going to have the next opportunity, so he doesn't want to wait too long.
Exactly. They don't know what kind of traffic is up. We don't know if he has a spotter in his ear. They've got Philip Carpenter just ahead of them. but I think they're going to get him on the straightaway. And look at them trying to decide which way to go. Poor Philip trying to figure out which way to give them, and Steve Brown is not close enough to make the pass once again as they head into braking with Sean Vandergriff staying defensive just the middle of the track. This could be an opportunity to Steve Brown to carry his momentum. He gets nice and close on the exit of 2, but just has, oh no, cut course penalty for Steve Brown. This could be the race unless
and the podium.
Unless Sean Vandergriff has a big problem, and we've got more battles for the podium. Contact between Jules-Jean Boldrin and Elliot Huffman. We need to hop back to this as we are on board with Boldrin. Let's see if we can get off board so that we can watch this battle. Nicholas Bailey trying to get by as well, and they're being held up by Stefan Oergaard and Hang Ho Tao as they weave their way through these guys. Boldrin able to get on the inside. Unfortunately, they're going to put a gap between themselves and Elliot Huffman, as that is just a mess of different cars. Now Huffman's able to get by on the backstretch, and he's got Nicholas Bailey right behind him. Bailey takes a little bit of a peek coming down up into turn 8, but nothing doing there.
Traffic has played such a big part in this race for a lot of these drivers.
And it's interesting in that fact, because you'd think with such a long stretch on the front stretch that guys would find opportunities to get by, but unfortunately it's been so difficult in that infield section that a number of races have been affected in that way. Sean Vandergriff is coming across the line now. He's going to take the white flag. We have 1 lap to go, and Sean Vandergriff has a 3-second lead over Steve Brown. It is almost all done, bar the shouting, unless we see a mistake from Sean Vandergriff.
Elliot Huffman is getting a run on Jules-Jean Boldrin for that 3rd place position. He's going to the outside, but he might get boxed in by Philip Carpenter in that ST car. And he's going to get stuck on that outside. Can't quite get the run into that turn 1. And they have 1 lap left to go, so it's now or never.
He's right on the back of him. He's probably going to take a look up on the inside of 4, but no, he's a little bit too far back. Tries to get himself a nice run through that corner. Still on the back of Jules-Jean Boldrin. Has nowhere to go as they head through the flat-out right-hander of 5. Now under braking for 6. Boldrin stays defensive. He's going to try around the outside. We've seen how this happens before. Is not able to hold onto it. Has to slot back into line. Meanwhile, on board with Nicholas Bailey, looking for something to do in this. And he is just not able to find a way past as these guys battle, hoping to get himself into a podium position. There's not many more chances. He tries to take a look coming through turn 10, but nowhere to go there. Now they head towards turn 11, and it's going to be all about the run you can get out of here. It looks like Huffman is right on the back of him, but we need to hop to Sean Vandergriff because Sean Vandergriff is coming to the line. He is going to take the win. Sean Vandergriff wins round 8 here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series, while Steve Brown takes 2nd. Meanwhile, the battle for 3rd, hotly contested. Jules-Jean Boldrin has Elliot Huffman with a run. He's right beside him. Is it enough? They bang doors. They come together, and it's going to be Jules-Jean Boldrin across the line for 3rd. Elliot Huffman manages 4th with a very damaged car, and Nicholas Bailey with a smoking machine sitting at the side of the track in 5th. Meanwhile, where is Sergio Mora? Sergio Mora is coming to the line. We need to switch to him. And Sergio Mora is going to take the win in ST finally. After having so many close calls early in the season, Sergio Mora overcomes his mistakes, overcomes the bad luck, and wins at round 8 at Indianapolis.
4th place battle.
Let's take a quick look back to Yaman, Freitas, and Giannis. This is finally going to end because the race is ending.
And right now it's Yaman up front, but that's probably not where he wants to be. João Freitas has the draft. He's reeling him in. I think, unfortunately, this is going to be João Freitas for 4th because he has got the momentum. He's coming in at a very fast rate. Oh, he's running out of room, though. I think it's going to go to Yaman. It does go to Yaman for 4th place.
Woo!
So close stuff all throughout the field, and I think we should be. I think that should be everyone very soon. Jeff Jacobs seems to be the last Mustang on the lead lap. I'm not sure who the last ST car is, though.
Did Boulder and Hoffman and Bailey actually spin across the starting line?
They did, in fact, and it sounds like Carpenter is the last car in the lead lap. But we are getting our music as cars are finishing the race. We are going to come back with the unofficial results and some interviews. Stick around. This was a fantastic one with a new winner in both classes. Great stuff today. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We have just witnessed an incredible race for 2 hours here for round 8 of the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series. But in the end, Sean Vandergriff came away with his first ever GS win in this series. Steve Brown, who unfortunately has the moniker now of Mr. Bridesmaid, sitting in second on the track when the checkered flag followed. Dualjean Boldrin came home in third after a pretty good run. Elliot Huffman, controversial finish for him, in fourth. Nicholas Bailey in fifth. Panu Pasanen in sixth. James Alex Brown in seventh. Jeff Jacobs in eighth. Ninth was Anthony Woodward, and then rounding out the top 10 and the GS field that finished was Jonathan Auger. What's our ST field looking like, Bill?
Highest podium goes to Sergio Mora. Second place, James Stevenson. In the race of his life, in my opinion, Thomas Torp. Hey, Thomas, take the wife, take the girlfriend out for Hey, take them both out for dinner. Third place, nice job, Thomas. Fourth place, Amjad Yaman. Fifth place, Yao Freitas. In sixth, Yuri Yanis. George Britton, didn't hear much from him. A nice seventh place finish. Arthur Chan from England in eighth. Bill Rattleman in ninth. Austin Esprit in 10th. We're going to keep going here. The smiling Canadian, Stefan Morian, don't call him Stephanie. And I think where am I? Ninth now. Stefan Overgaard in 10th. Hango Tao in 11th or 12th. I can't really tell where I am. Ed Voris behind him. Tom Ecklein behind that one. Then we're going to wrap out the field here with David Wammond, Philip Carpenter, Carl Williamson going to be our last. Nope, there's two more. Matthew Reinhold, and wrapping out the ST classes, Richie Bryan. He might not even have raced. Back to you, Joe.
Well, first up, we have our first-time winner. They're both first-time winners in both classes, actually, but we have our GS winner, and that is Sean Vandergriff. And Ayrton Ellis is going to ask him a few questions.
Thanks, Joe. Sean, you there?
Yes, sir, I am.
Well, congratulations. First win in this series, and you're a rookie, so really good job. How'd you feel?
Well, thank you. To be honest with you, I feel very hot. My AC went out today, and it's about 86 degrees in here.
Well, I mean, you definitely drove really well, considering the circumstances. Steve Brown is definitely a really fast driver. You held up really well against him, and it was pretty tense in those last 20 minutes or so with him right on your tail. Kept on closing up on you and then making a mistake, closing up on you again. What was it like being under that pressure near the end?
Yeah, definitely. Steve's a great driver. He's a good guy. He's a lot of fun to race with. I was nervous. I felt like I had him on pace if I drove all out, but I was trying to make sure I had enough saved on my tires in case he got by me that I could stay with him and put some pressure on him and hopefully make him mess up. But it was a lot of fun racing against him. He did a hell of a job.
And we were talking about it a little before the race, how Indianapolis can serve quite a few different pit strategies because you can actually save a lot of fuel on that straight. What do you think your pit strategy was compared to some of the other drivers?
Steve was the one I was worried about mostly because his pit strategy typically from the last few races anyways, he's really beaten me on it. So I try to kind of keep an eye on him, and when he pit I wanted to stay within a few laps once I realized it was probably going to go green the whole way. So I kind of short pitted on my last stint just to try and make sure I pitted early enough to where I could still take tires and have the benefit of them throughout the rest of the race.
Yeah, it looked like after that second pit stop, he caught up to you quite a bit, cut off about 3 or 4 seconds, so it was a tense moment, but you managed to hold that lead really well, so congratulations once again, and thanks for talking to us.
Sure thing. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your help.
Back to you, Joe.
Up next, we have Steve Brown, who is our second place finisher in the GS class. And Steve, I hate to always be sitting here interviewing you in these circumstances, but it seems like another missed opportunity today.
Well, yes and no. You know, I think I had enough for Sean if I didn't make a couple mistakes. I made one mistake when I got by him too deep into one there. And then he ended up getting held up in traffic. Well, I actually think I got held up in traffic first. And I thought it was all over, and then he got held up in traffic to catch me back up. And then I think the next lap, I got to slow down in turn 1, which is the first time I got it in probably 4 seasons here. But I'm pretty happy with the second place, considering I was dumped on lap 2 or whatever and was 12th in class, and without any caution just drove all the way up to the lead pretty much.
Yeah, we were extremely impressed by that. And I have to ask, at what point after that moment were you able to get the visor down, cool down, and just focus on the task at hand?
Well, I honestly thought I was going to need a caution to get back. And then once I got up to about 7th or 8th in class and we started catching other traffic, I flipped over to the standings page and was noticing that I was catching the leader while we were all in traffic, and I was surprised by that. And it wasn't, just a few tenths here and there. There was laps where I was gaining a full second or more. So that's when, once we got into traffic, that's when I put my head down and just said, it's time to go, because we're not going to get a caution here. And then I didn't go into the race with any strategy as far as pit strategy goes. I didn't have time to think about it. So I started thinking about it about 30 minutes into the race and thought, I'll just split the race in thirds and pit at the 40-minute mark for each stint. And that seemed to work, because at about 35 minutes or so, maybe a little bit past that, for the last 2 laps of the stint, the rear tires were just gone. So it worked out to be a great time to pit. And then, of course, new tires picks up time like nothing, and I gained about 5 seconds there on Sean for that last stop.
Well, it was still a phenomenal drive. Just hoping that we see you on that top step again at some point. And the good news is for you that out of all your championship competitors, you finished higher than all of the ones that are higher than you in the points. So you're going to make inroads there. But again, congratulations at least on a second position, and hope to see you at Road America.
Thanks, Joe. I don't know if that's entirely true, because I think Sean might be ahead of me as well. But thanks, guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Up next, we have our second place finisher in the ST class, and that is James Stevenson. And I believe Bill is going to ask him a few questions.
James, can you hear me? I have such good questions for James Stevenson. James, you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, cool. Let's talk big picture first. You've got several championships under your belt already. We've done some calculations. We think you're going to be leading the points when this is all done. Is the championship champagne going to taste as sweet if you win it, but you do it without a race victory?
I think it's going to taste even sweeter, because I've been in the position for a race victory so many times this season and just, had bad luck. So it's going to taste even better.
Let me talk about one more thing about the championship, and then another one specifically about this race. When you're racing, and you have those championships, and you're in a dogfight, do you think about the big picture, or does the fun of the dogfight take over? Do you ever say, nah, I don't want to get involved in this because it's not worth the cost expense ratio is not right, or do you just like to race no matter what?
I just like to race no matter what, but if it's early on in the race, you have to think about the race result as well, so sometimes it's better just to sit back and watch and wait for the end.
Okay, help me with pit strategy today. We were watching, and Carl Williamson, he was way on front, and I'm saying, this guy's got it made. Were you concerned when he was running away with it, or did you have it figured out?
I actually waved to him after the first pit stop when he was still sitting in his pit stall, so we had him covered.
I'll let you go, but so what did you do you come in and before your tank is empty and you fill it all the way up? Is that what you did this time?
Yeah, that's what we did. It's this build has tire wear, so the tires fall off as you're driving along, so it's better to fill up just enough that you can take the tires without having a penalty on time.
Got it. And then you did it. So then you did it again. Did you take tires the second stop as well?
Yeah, but I overshot my pit spoil, which is what let Sergio get away from me.
Got it. Well, it's a pleasure. Let's go out and let's get a victory. Good luck with the championship, but let's get a win, okay?
No worries.
All right. Thanks. We'll see you next week. Back to you, Joe.
One less interview today, and that is Amjad Yaman, who was second in the championship to James, and unfortunately going to lose ground on him after this finish, which is probably not as high as he wanted today. Amjad, you had some fierce battles with your teammate out there, but are you unhappy with a fourth place finish in the end? Or yes, fourth place.
Yeah, podium would have been nice, but I knew today I was gonna be garbage. I'm not good at this track at all. So a 4th place, I'll survive.
So with early on in the season, you were pretty dominant. You were managing. You managed 2 wins in a row, and were definitely up in the hunt. And later on in the season, you've been a little bit farther down in the pack consistently. Well, I guess except for Mosport, where you had a potential win there. Are you unhappy with the new build, or is it just certain tracks are not playing to your strengths?
Yeah, it's the tracks. I mean, like today, Indy is one of my worst tracks that I drive on. So, for me today, it was just to survive. That's all I was hoping for.
Well, speaking of tracks and strengths, up next is Road America, and that is, like this one, very much a draft track. Are you looking forward to that one?
I actually am. I think I'm a little bit better at this. I haven't driven the MX-5 in a while, but I got some good teammates at 49 Motorsports that will definitely help me out.
Excellent stuff. Well, again, commiserations on just missing out on the podium, and good luck at the next round.
All right, thank you.
Well, guys, that just about wraps it up for us today. It was some awesome racing and very interesting in the championship, especially with some of our top GS guys not showing up yet again. It makes it wide open for those guys in the Mustangs as to who can come out ahead in the end. So before we go, let's thank a few people. Obviously, thanks to Safecraft Racing, the official sponsor of the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series. Also thanks to Wes Eric, the organizer of this league. We need to thank iRacing.com, XSplit, Twitch TV, Audio Technica, and AverMedia. Those are all the software and hardware that we use to make these broadcasts possible. Thanks to the team today. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, you can find it at www.globalsimracingchannel.com, along with archived races and race highlights. We're also on Twitter at GSR Channel and Facebook at /GlobalSimRacingChannel. Thanks goes out to Doug Beard, who creates all the camera sets for the Global Sim Racing channel. And a special thank you to Eric Ekholm, whose music is not only found here on GSRC, but in TV commercials, movie trailers, iTunes, and Spotify. If you like our music, tell Eric where you heard it on Twitter at Eric Ekholm. Also, thanks to Casey Lalonde, who also provides us with music for our broadcast. You can find more of his music at caseylalonde.bandcamp.com, where he has a new album in the works and should be out very soon. Our next race, as we mentioned, is at Road America. That's Saturday, October 4th, about a month from now. That'll kick off at 10:30 p.m. UTC. That's going to be an interesting one. Always throws up an interesting result. Our next broadcast is tomorrow night. That's the VSRA at Road Atlanta. That's Sunday, September 7th at 9 p.m. Eastern. And of course, the ASRS comes back at Chicagoland Wednesday, September 17th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Then, of course, the iSuperspeedway Series is back with its weekly race at Daytona, September 12th at 10 p.m. Eastern. And then, of course, the Blondie Series is back at Silverstone, Saturday, September 13th at 6 p.m. UTC. And then the Northwest Majors heads to Road Atlanta for the Petite Le Mans, Sunday, October 5th at 5:45 p.m. Pacific. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and I'll see you on the track.